share a screen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another crypto chat for Certification Station. I'm so glad to have everybody here. I'm very honored to be able to talk to you guys, and anybody cares to listen to me. I am over 60. I have children and a wife, and most of them don't care to listen to me. Dad's going on again about his philosophy. But some of you, I don't know if you went to my website recently. So this is the first chat I've had since Larry clicked that button that Tom said, you don't want to click that. And that button was a registrar domain transfer. And I'm glad I did. I could have planned it better. So if you've been to my website, and we're almost up, but it's not pretty yet. And actually the PayPal linkage isn't working. So that's a little rough. And my helper here has to take everything by email, my salesperson. So, but it all started with this. So what you're looking at right here is NIST's SP 1800. It seems like everybody's familiar with the 800 series, but not so much getting with the 1800. And this is for DNS-based email security. So if you're in this chat, I'm going to guess that you noticed something about malware. Hanyan, I think I am. Hanyan asks, am I doing DNSSec? So we'll get to that. All right. So the most malware, my wife's in incident management. She's a director of incident management at a large pharmaceutical. She's been doing this for years. I'd like to get her out of it. It's very stressful. And most malware spreads through phishing attacks. That's just it. So if you're not familiar with my class, what I mostly like to compare this to a lot of shipping standards. That's where we get a lot of these terms. But think of the information superhighway as the regular highway. On a highway, you have cars and trucks and whatever. You have vehicles, you have machines, right? And then you have the people piloting the machines. And everyone has a license. Every machine has a license, and every person has a license to see if they're roadworthy. This started in ships to make sure that the ship was ship shape. You're going to be taking the gold from England to China. You want to upload that and download T, and you're going to do this for our company. We're going to give you the contract. We want to come in and inspect and make sure that ship is ship shape. But we did this in computers. We rolled out the certifications of to validate your name. Let me see your ID. And your name on the internet is your LDAP, your X.500, your whatever Active Directory entry, your this subject at this organization .org type. And your machines are if they're offering services, it would be like www dot, the service dot the order. But either way, you get a certificate. NIST has got a certificate. I went to this page and their machine's got a certificate. I can go and see if it's secure. It says it's secure. Let me see your certificate. And these are things to make me reasonably certain that, and they got this from Let's Encrypt. That's so funny. Oh, that's great because they do it free. I just got one from a new one for my new house, also from Let's Encrypt. So that's how I know it's really somebody. And it's a wild card cert. So it could be any machine at NIST. I just did that for email too. So it's not just getting DNSSec. I got to get the cert for the person and so when in 2018, the solution to all these problems is to be certain about the DNS servers. When I ask a DNS, hey, where is this www.nist.gov? I need to put, an address on the envelope, on the packet header to get shipped over there. And right from the start, you've been in this class, that DNS cache poisoning, I always say, if you didn't ask a question, you shouldn't be getting answers. But people do that all the time. Oh, I know the IP address for NIST.gov. Don't remember asking you, but that way I don't bug people and you write it down. Actually, you cache it. So you cache it. So I want to know that I get an authoritative answer. Anybody taking an ISC square, CISSP, CCSP, they're all hitting on DNSSec now. And in 2009, why do I always forget his name when I'm talking? But a number of great hacker researchers over the years have been pushing if anybody knows, I think it's Dan. But he's been pushing for many, many years that we need to do this. Starting like 2000, we've had DNSSec. And then in May of 2009, somebody poisoned all the root servers. So those got patched by like May of 2010. Yeah, that's great. Not too many places below it. So Hanyan asked, "You're running it?" I said, "I think so." What do I have? Hold up, let me bring up my AWS console here. I should do that on a break when I'm not showing you how much is. Yeah, there's my SSL.com stuff. This is how I got my domain cert. Let me go back to where I was here. But I'm running AWS Route 53. So that was in order for me, and this is what brought everything down. In order for me to run DNSSec, we had just talking about vendor lock-in, another CCSP test objective. I got locked into a developer who I like very much. He started a company I've known for a little while, brilliant engineer, ex CrowdStrike guy. Made a lot of money, started his own company. After a year, I was his only customer. He said, "I'm taking another job. Can you please get off of my thing?" And God bless him. It took me 6 months to finally go, "I'm doing it." Yeah. So no complaint, but I had to get off of vendor lock-in. It was at his site. I get AWS. I put everything in AWS. Route 53 is DNS as a service. It's a wonderful thing. I love my Route 53. It supports DNSSec for my server, which I moved over to Lightsail, which is kind of like infrastructure, almost a platform as a service type of. So now I've got the DNSSec configured, and in order for that to I just hit something. I hope I hit admit instead of accidentally reject. Yeah, I got a couple of people joining us. So Route 53 wanted to be my registrar. My registrar has not changed since I brought up my site in my domain. I registered the name Internet Network Defense in 2000. I didn't even realize it was that early. I was thinking it was January 2001. That's when my web server went up. But I forgot I registered the name before I even had a server. So I go to it and they said we need a registrar, and I had just made some DNS changes. So did Tom. Tom is my work colleague, Tom Up the Grove. He runs Internet Network Service. Some of you know him. He's actually just became the very first American to pass the EC Council's license penetration test master. 24 hour of that. So he's going to be doing some work for us too. But anyway, so he says, "Oh, you don't want to click that button." And says, "Yeah, they want if I let them, he's moving the light sail server." And I read over about DNSSec and I go, "No, it says just click here." He goes, "Yeah, you don't want to do that." Well, he didn't know why, but it turned out because when you do that, you lose control. And it depends on the registrar you're pulling it from. I noticed GoDaddy had a very loose, they said between 4 and 8 days. I was pulling it from Dotster. They said more specific, more precise, between 6 and 7. It was 6.5 days before I gained administrative control, and none of the DNS light sail changes were replicated. So that resulted in some fun stuff. But we got it. As far as I know, when it came up, I then go to Route 53, and I put in the settings for the DNS, and it tells me it's now working. I go to Wireshark, sniff it. I'm not seeing any DNSSec replies. I'm very busy. I had a tour to class last week, and I've been doing other stuff, so I still have yet to inspect what's going on. In fact, I'm upgrading. I'm in the process of upgrading my Wireshark now. Anybody see Wireshark 4.0 came out? Normally, I don't install things in a class, in a regular class I want. I'm going to install this. Wireshark 4.0 does something CISSP, guys. Wireshark 4.0 can display multiple header information as in the very testable CISSP generic routing encapsulation. So I can see the IP address in the, if I could say display IP adder or whatever, number one, it's going to show me the GRE header's IP address. But if I say number two, I can see the original client if it's an IP. Really cool. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. So is DNSSec, bottom line, is my DNS running DNSSec? My Route 53 console says, yes, I am. But I don't trust anything until I can sniff it. So I don't know yet. That's a goal. So we got a question. Isn't Google better since they have a faster network backbone? I don't know. I intend to play around with some, you know, who else? What about Microsoft has made some great strides in the crypto world. I like where Microsoft's going. I'll tell you what, I found a Route 53 limitation right away. Right away. I had to put in the, not for my server, but I'm using an RSA key for my, for a newsletter. And I hope you guys will sign up for it. That's this. So in order to get this coming from my website, I had to, this is our newsletter. Let me go up there if you haven't seen it. And I wish you guys would sign up. And normally I have my my helper here, and she does that for you guys. But this is an AI based newsletter I'm testing, and so grateful to be a part of it with Peter Diamandis, the author of Abundance: The Future is Better Than You Think. So this is our newsletter, and it's dedicated to good news. We're just trying to find stuff in there. So in order for it to come from our domain, I had to import their public key. And when I did in the DNS, oops, let me go back to this, into my DNS, I found a limitation with, sorry guys, the back right here, with Route 53. Route 53 has a weird thing when you put in the environment variable for the key. It wouldn't let me put in, and future scope, I'm out of my control, a 4,000 bit certificate from RSA. It overflowed their thing. And there's a glitch. And I found somebody who found a workaround. He said, just go in the middle. Oh, you guys may have lost my audio. I'm sorry. I get a message now. So I in Route 53 the question was, isn't Google better? And I go for hosting. Route 53, I love it. It's already got a limit. But if you ever get into this thing and you got to put an environment variable, I think it's over like 3K, according to the article I read, you have to just split it. I just picked a place in the middle and put both pieces in quotes and no space between the quote, or else it'll treat it as a new line. Crazy. So they got some maturing to do. So this is rough. DNSSec, it's been out, the concept's been out for years, but very few places below the root are doing it. But Wireshark.org and their sample DNS, if you ever go to Wireshark.org and their sample captures, they got captures of all kinds of protocols. I couldn't find a sample of DNSSec. Found one somewhere else, and I have it here, and I'll find it during the break, and I'll share it out. But so we'll look at somebody's DNSSec. It won't be mine. Hey, good news. One good thing, and very testable to any CISSP person. Make sure you know that SMTP today is not likely running over 25. You're encrypting it probably over the default of 465 over TLS. Yeah, that's a good thing. In fact, I don't think you can get anything street legal that does that. When I say that, you're not allowed to be compliant to like PCI or something if you're not running that. And I find everybody is. So that's good. That means when the mail servers talk to each other, everything they say gets encrypted behind the packet header and the segment header. So you'll see, the IP address and the port, but you won't see any of the data. But how do I know that email actually came from Bob? And how do I know that anybody in the, between there who had the key didn't see my email? The actual end-to-end protection. And this is so crazy what I've been finding these days. And I'll share with you what I found, and I certainly welcome you guys to share what you know about trying to get SMIME rolled out. I've been teaching SMIME and why it's important for many years. Over 2 decades, I've been teaching CISSP. You got SMIME and PGP to protect your email. And actually, all my DoD guys have it working. It seems they plug in their CAC, it's got the private public key pair, bada bing, bada boom, and they do SMIME. They can encrypt their email. But outside of the DoD, I don't see a lot of people doing this. And I've been trying to roll it out. And Hanya had said you saw the domain validation. So one of the things I found when one of the other reasons I switched to AWS is their Workmail. So now they have software as a service for just email, right? So I go to the Workmail, and Workmail, the new promise, we support SMIME. AWS has a certificate server. In my head, I'm going, okay, Route 53, DNSSec. Workmail got the SMIME support. Certificate server, I'll create my certificates. I'll get everything working I can be. SP 1800, if you came in late, we're looking at a NIST document up here that I'm obsessed with that I think will mitigate most of our malware, at least 80%, not 100%. But I think if we knew who we were getting email from, if people couldn't lie, if I could see your ID every time you sent the email. So this 1800 is all about that. I'm going to be SP 1800 compliant. Not so fast. First of all, to get a certificate for me, they have personal email certificates, and that could be at my Gmail. Gmail supports it. You got to go to a CA or some certificate provider, an SMIME certificate provider for some reason. Even with AWS certificate server, it doesn't support the creation of SMIME certificates. Why? I don't know. So we're going to talk about this today. We're going to share. Hopefully, maybe you guys will share with me why. But this is really why aren't people running SMIME? And I can tell you what I found out. So let's go back to the simple one. You want to upload an SMIME certificate to Gmail. You will need to provide your real ID. They wanted me, and I did it at first, and then I canceled. I put my driver's license in there. And I'm like, I don't know if I try, even if they meant well, if they get hacked and I don't know that I want them to have my license. So I can't just say, no, I already have an email address. It's Larry Greenblatt at Internet Network Defense. They're Larry Greenblatt, just Larry Greenblatt. And they go, no, we want your government issued ID. No, I didn't do that. But it makes sense. I mean, why would they issue me a passport? I just want a passport for a guy named Bob. I'm going to be Bob. I get it. But for Internet Network Defense, my company, I would like to administer that because I have a bunch, and it's not like I'm saying he's Larry Greenblatt, the individual entity. And this is just Larry Greenblatt, the virtual guy who works at Internet Network Defense. It doesn't do that right now. I'd have to get, I think, an intermediate CA, and I can do that. But instead, I got this, the domain validation. And the beauty of this domain validation, let me clear these drawings for a second, is that I can create other things like sales. So right now I have username HR Greenblatt, and the real signer will be somebody at Internet Network Defense. All we're going to agree to is that he's from Internet Network Defense. In fact, I meant to show you an example of it. We'll call it that. In fact, Google will show you what's really weird is if I send an email to somebody in my company as H.O. Greenblatt, everything comes out cool. But if I send it to you in Gmail, something comes up wrong and they go, this message was tampered with. This is a challenge. Before I get too crazy, anybody here try to do S-MIME. Let's pause here for a second. Is anyone here running S-MIME? And yet everybody here had to study it, didn't you? What is going on? So that's our goal today. We're just going to try and get smarter, whether it's for the test or to make the world a safer place. If we can roll this out, SP 1800's guideline, the special publications or guideline, on how to secure email properly, starting with secure DNS to make sure I got your domain name right in the first place, the MTA speaking to each other, that problem's done. Again, the root servers are running DNSSec, but not many below that. And as far as S-MIME, I'll bet you we have less than 2% penetration. When was the last time has anyone here gotten an S-MIME signed email that you remember ever? All right. Well, I will share these slides with you. Sorry. But this is my my goal for today. So welcome officially. that was my little intro. I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. So we're going to talk about some crypto stuff and federated identity management. I need the federation. And with the federation, if you don't know, is this group, the ISO. There you go. No, I'm going to keep that too. And that's S-MIME. Larry, you need everything. All right, here we go. ISO. The federation is these guys. The ISO, the International Organization for Standardization. It's not International Standards Organization. Their name, it's not an acronym, it's a word. We are, it means equal. There are currently 167 member bodies around all representative countries, and we treat each other equal from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe. This is a wonderful future we're moving into, and the ISO helps. And so to me, they're the federation. When I say federated identity management, the ISO has a standard for names. It's the X.500 name. This is why you are this organization, why your format of your name, why Microsoft's Active Directory has you this dot, that dot. It's all based on an international standard. And this is what you claim. Yes, that's my name. And when you want to prove it, I will need to be not 100% certain, but reasonably certain. We get a certificate. So the DNS has a X.509 certificate. The MTAs have an X.509 certificate. And these are working. It's getting the X.509 certificate for the user. One of the things, we'll get there. Actually, I should save some of this stuff for after the break here. Right? And I don't know what this activation error keeps coming up. I haven't booted up. This is a VM, Fedora VM, and I haven't rebooted it in a while. So maybe that's the issue. Now, again, my bent here, I'm a crypto lover. I love crypt. It means hide, and graph just means to write. But we don't really use cryptography only for hiding our writing. No, the revolution of blockchain and all that, that's not for confidentiality. That's for integrity. Our hashing algorithms, they're not encryption. They're crypted in that they're based on a terrible name. No wonder the domain's so hard, so cryptic. So when you want confidentiality, sure, you can do that. I could say, high level. We got a private public key pair, and I encrypt something with Alice's public key. She's the only one who could see it. But so much of life is it's more important that when Alice encrypted something with a private key, everybody can decrypt it and know that it came from Alice and that it wasn't damaged. When we compete, we have like friendly competition, of course, like sports and stuff, but then sometimes it gets unfriendly. It's like, dude, there's only enough water for one group of people. We got the mountain people and the valley people, and one of them's going to get water and the other one dies off. Then competition drives confidentiality and information suffers because they're not going to share information. In fact, if anything, they're going to lie to each other. I don't know where the water is. You know, just like when the Eagles are going to run the ball, they might lie to them. They'll make it look like you're going to pass, sucker. But you get errors in information. When you really want to know the truth about something, you need to know that it's accurate. Suppose there's enough water for the mountain people and the valley people, and you know, we're moving to a world of abundance. There's no limited resources, but the mountain people grow the best strawberries in their jelly. Mwah. And the valley people, they make the best peanuts. The peanut butter is out of this world. And now they can collaborate instead of compete against each other. And that's where the world is today, from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe. Art. I mean, I'm a musician. It's amazing how people could just keep blending different musical types. You know, you watch Netflix, we get to see all kinds of artists from all over the world. And when the mountain people, you know, send the jelly, it's important to the valley people that this jelly really is authentic. It came from the mountain people. I'm not buying some cheap knockoff. And it wasn't damaged in shipping. That's what blockchain does. Blockchain increases integrity. We're getting a story that you know, my mom used to always say, history. First of all, it's only his. It's not hers. So you don't get the whole story. They're competing, right? And she goes, and you're not getting all of his story either, Larry. That's just the winner of the last war. He rewrites history. But blockchain's changing that. We're going to get her story, and people aren't going to be able to rewrite it. It's wonderful. And of course, my cloud class, we're going to cover more availability. We make it available everywhere. So that's our goal, though. We want to make sure that, of course, competition, friendly competition is important. And sometimes, you know, look, you don't need to know my social security number, none of your business. But much more important, I want to make sure that the DLLs I got, you know, my collaborators, you know, in a cloud environment, I'm not developing everything. You heard me say that I'm using DNS as a service. I'm using platform as a service for my light sail service. I'm using software as a service for my work. I want to make sure that all these DLLs, that my Zoom DLL, my Zoom client's really talking to the Zoom server. You know, it's the application program interfaces that where so much goes wrong. So if we use certificates for machines like the X.5 and on the TLS certificate that I saw for Nest, or S-MIME certificates, as rare as they are for people, what certificates do we have for APIs? That's another class, but that's OpenID. And my wife is a big crypto knucklehead, and she just, I guess it was last week, the Binance, or no, who was it? Somebody lost $250 million. And then she says, it's always the same. It's always the bridge where, she calls the bridges where the APIs talk. It's always that part. So, but we're not going to talk about that today. I want to stay focused on mail today. In my adventure moving to AWS and stuff. I got to give a little ad here. Oh, by the way, it's such a horrible thing. I want to get back, so I'm not going to write it down. But if you send an email, our server's still down, to sales at Internetwork Defense. You guys for sitting here, I'll give you a gold membership for $99. Okay. Sales at Inter. I'm trying to make up, if anybody doing your CISSP, remember in business continuity, business resumption plans are how do you gain back customer confidence? How do I ensure them that lessons learned and that we're better for the mistakes? And this is one thing I hope to do. So again, I'll give you a gold membership for $99, and you could put in the subject at 99 search station or something like that in the subject, and that'll remind you. Awesome. My objective here, though, we're going to make sure, if you've been in my class, or maybe sat this before, Hanya, and I hope I'm not boring you. I want to go over the fundamentals again of crypto and make sure you know where we are. And then we're going to just get back deeper into what happened. So symmetric, asymmetric, and hashing algorithms are what we make up crypto for now. I discovered something recently. Oh, guys, what else happened since the last time I saw you? post-quantum computing came out. We'll talk about that too. And there was just something from the European, it just came out a couple of days ago. So we'll talk about these, and NIST selected, if you missed it, in July 5th of this year, NIST selected their new signing and key agreement algorithms as well. A little controversy if anybody's been following, like the OpenSSH people are like, no, there's a better way to do this, So we'll see. It's always some conspiracy theories going on in crypto. But when I encrypt data right now, the only street legal systems I know, the data encryption keys are only going to be AES. You can talk about DES and triple DES and does it blowfish faster? And I heard there's an idea. Try to get PCI compliant with anything except for AES. You might be able to get triple DES. I doubt. Why bother? AES, which comes in small, medium, and large. It comes in 128. 128, 192, and 256. And in theory it does, but I've been buying this stuff for a while and I sniff things out and I've never seen anything that supports 192. It's like you only have small, medium, and large, and I wear a medium, and now I got to wear larges because the smalls won't button. Yeah, it's a little wasted overhead, but it's not a big deal. I don't know. I just like to pick with it. The hardest part in symmetric encryption, Bob and Alice have to share the key. They're poly-instantiated. Sender and receiver need to know. And I can't, it's basically the key to the safe. Bob and Alice are going to get the key to the safe. They're the only two people with keys to the safe. Where do you put the key to the safe? You can't put it in the safe. That's the hard part. That's what Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman solved. And what we're really going to be focused on today, a lot of these asymmetric, we use the public key of the receiver or whatever, right? And that encrypts the keys. Of course, most of this is still done with a passphrase. When I encrypt, say, my private key to make sure my private key is safe, I do that with a passphrase. CISSP is way to remember that, by the way. And the last I heard that question, by the way, if you're going for the CISSP, they asked it in the context of PGP. But it's the same thing when I got my private key for my MIME certificate from SSL.com last week. So now you always protect you. In fact, we're going to create some. I'm going to use a tool called Kleopatra. I'll show you. If you want to, we're going to be taking a break in 25 minutes or so. But the tool I'm using here, if you want to try and get it installed in your system, where's my Kleopatra? Here. So we're going to use this to create either PGP or XF509 keys. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then, but when you have your private public key pair, now Diffie-Hellman couldn't do this, but I can encrypt something with my private key. The public has my public key, and they all know it's not encrypted anymore. It's authenticated. That's when you sign things. So the private key of the sender is always the signing key. These are the things where all crypto systems mix no more than these. They might do less, but they're not going to do more. So we'll sniff out some TLS to see what's going on today. We'll see some of the older slow ways and the new quick way. That's QUIC, the quick protocol. We'll see how, we'll take a look at some of that, and we'll see how they'll select a symmetric algorithm. And it's probably, I guarantee you will not find any TLS, or I'll give a free gold to anybody who finds a TLS server that negotiates something besides AES at 128 or 256. So we'll validate that claim. We'll see the asymmetric pairs. Now, if they pick RSA, you'll just see one selection. But if they pick elliptical curve has separate key agreement protocols versus signing protocols. And we'll see. It's either elliptical curve digital signature algorithm to sign, but elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman to do key agreement. We'll see that. And then the hashing algorithms today, the only street legal, SHA 256 or higher. No more 128. You might still see negotiating the 128, or excuse me, at 160. SHA comes in small, medium, and large. Or actually, it comes in a few sizes. SHA-2 comes out in 224. Never seen it used. 256, used all the time. 384, available, sometimes chosen. In fact, the ISU Square, the last time I sniffed out a handshake, they choose the 384. 512, never seen it implemented yet. I'm sure it's coming. And there's an SHA-3 has been out for over 10 years. So we'll see how these things get negotiated. Now, something like your Wi-Fi, your WPA2, it's only symmetric encryption. They don't do this and they don't do this. They can check integrity with a cipher block chaining version of AES. So we can talk about that in another. That's not for today. But anyway, we're going to generate private public key pairs with our Kleopatra software. Kleopatra is a nice front end to OpenPGP. It's not complete. When people create templates, oh my gosh, there have been some great hacks recently. It's Microsoft's Active Directory certificate service based on these templates. In fact, that's why I know somebody whose pen test just failed because they did that. So when you get a graphical front end to something like, and we're going to see again, Kleopatra does it to OpenPGP. I have another tool I'm going to use, XCA. So they're the two tools along with Wireshark we're going to look at today. And XCA, do I have it open? XCA is a graphical front end to OpenSSL. Again, it doesn't have everything, but it's a little more powerful. Actually, it's a lot more powerful, but you're going to have to, it's a little more of a learning curve. So we'll play with it. But OpenPGP, so they're the two basic protocols, right? X.509 and PGP. As far as X.509, whoops, let me go back. They said you create an X.509 pair, but we're using it for SMIME. This is one of the hacks they did on Microsoft Active Directory, and I've been saying it for years. Everybody, if anyone's been in my class and you heard me talk about it, I called it the golden certificate. It was done. It's not even, I don't know if I made up the name because I've been doing it for 3 years, but these guys showed it in Black Hat DEF CON. They called it that in, I believe it was June of 2021 or July 2021, and I missed it. But when my friend's pen test failed, I went back into it. We'll look that up. But what I'm going to show you here. When you create a certificate, there's reasons for it. And this is what happened. So if I want to be a SMIME certificate, all it's doing is taking your driver's license. There's nothing different about the format. This is what bothers me, that AWS certificate server won't let me do something because they have the ability. I just want to click different key usage fields. This is how they have templates in Microsoft's Active Directory certificate service for the average user. When you submit it to get signed by the CA, they assumed you went through your template. A typical user for like SMIME would be this. Oh, not certificate, that's a CA and key agreement, right? See, these are the typical, if someone's going to get, maybe as much as this, if you're going to get an SMIME certificate. Let's go back and see what I mean about these templates. If I use a template for this tool, they have a few templates. I could say, just the default TLS server. What would that do? And I apply it to all, and you look at key usage, and it does this because that's what a TLS server should do. But I said, what's wrong with me just clicking everything, right? And I call it the golden certificate. So this is like a driver's license. Because let's say, what are you authorized to do around here? Oh, you're authorized to do any freaking thing you want. That's how my friend's pen test failed. It doesn't validate you. And once you're already a registered user in the domain, your Microsoft certificate service says you're good. I'll give you the template for the average user. fill out and then submit. And they took the template, edited it, and submitted it, and it still signed it. Awesome. So we'll look at these tools. All right. So this is, we'll talk about how it's supposed to work. And of course, the blockchain in the future, it's changing everything. We're going to have records that are very hard to delete. Is it immutable? Before we go there, let's just say it's, let me show you what I mean. Do I have it open here? Here we go. If you didn't know, the federated ISO Federation root servers are already loaded on your machine. When you get a machine, so Microsoft here is displaying 67. There's actually 200 or so from the Federation. One of the problems is in this PKI world is, why did Microsoft only select 67? Maybe they were saying, well, because you don't need all that stuff. It's going to be stuff you never use, and this will speed it up. I can accept that maybe. But here's another problem. How hard is it to get someone else in here? Because all you got to do, is import one. And a lot of times companies will have an internal certificate authority, and they need to do this for valid reasons. But it could be just a cat video, and then somebody clicked on. So, I mean, it's a little harder, but if you look at the names here, R&D, that's me. That's not, I put that in there, and I could have said anything I want. And what's the key usage? Is it for client authentication? No, my R&D can do everything, and I'm not the only one. So blockchain in the future record keeping, though, is that we can have, if I can get you to click on a cat video, I can break this. I mean, it's got to, like, you're going to get prompted. Do you want to allow this? Because it's going to run in admin mode, whatever my hack is. And you're going to go, cat video? What's he doing? Playing the piano? Yes. So you click on. But could I do that to the Bitcoin miners? No. I would need, well, if it's 67, it's a consensus protocol. It's not invulnerable. If I could get half plus 1, 67, it'd be if I could get 34 of these guys to click on the same cat video. If these were Bitcoin miners, you'd need to have poison 34 of them. Bitcoin miners recalculate every 10 minutes, so I'd have to get them to all click 34 guys to click on the same cat video within 10 minutes. And there aren't 67 Bitcoin miners, about 1 million. So I'd need, so it's not vulnerable. It is theoretically possible. I could get 500,000, 500,000 admins to click on the same cat video within 10 minutes and break Bitcoin. It's highly unlikely. So it's going to make the future. So one of my first fixes to this, if I were in charge, blockchain this list, blockchain the list of CAs. So the public key infrastructure is an ISO standard of how to validate your X.500 name. When you're in your house doing whatever you want, I don't care. But if you're driving on the highway, I need a license for your car, and I need a license for for the driver. And that's what X.509 certificates are for. Licenses for the cars, for the machines, and the APIs, right? And their services. So that's what OpenID is for. And certificates for the people, for the drivers. But it's very vulnerable right now. It's not mature. We haven't rolled it out anywhere. We're probably, like I said, 2% penetration for people. And even if we did get it deployed, the back end is extremely vulnerable to a single point of failure. So if you've sat in one of my classes before, and I talked about SolarWinds, that really exploited the hell out of this. So they knew I don't want to go too far down that. It was another thing, but they basically pretended to be other certs. Now, talk about business resumption plans. You know who really responded well? Microsoft. They started all these elliptical curve, and they're much stronger. They're much better configured. So if you're using Microsoft, or if you're from Microsoft, I applaud Microsoft, and I feel very good about what they're doing. Yeah. So back to why did I go to AWS and not Azure? Hey, I rolled the dice and I said, I'm going to take the steak tonight. Tomorrow, I'll pick the lobster. I don't know. I credited this solution. They were both, yeah, nobody's perfect. Or Google. We'll see. So that's our goal. We're going to go over just basic stuff here. And again, if you're just joining us, it's the mail that I'm mostly considering. So the intelligent consumer, we don't need to be mathematicians here, but all we're going to do for now is if you need confidentiality, you need to share a secret key because you're going to encrypt that data. There might be still some RC4 out there. I hope not. You're going to be using AES, and you probably won't be able to select that. You're going to have to pick one of these two. That's how we encrypt data today. If you want to be street legal, that's all you care about. When you want to make sure that the peanut butter wasn't damaged in shipping, you're going to be using SHA2, possibly 3. This is to make sure that the wax seal wasn't broken on the bottle. That's all it is. It's a tamper-proof. And that I thought it's pretty cool. I love meaning the words. That's how my mom brought me up this. You're going to see if it's insincere, because that's what that word comes from. To sear it with wax. If a letter was broken, the wax seal was broken, it's insincere. Now the wax alone by itself, anybody could put wax on it, but they would have the king stamp. That's what your private key is. And this is the stuff we're going to talk about. Really focus on what most people don't get. Private keys are used to sign hashes. That's what they do. They check to see that the wax seal really came from whatever. It didn't have to be bob@valley.com. As long as it came from the Valley, domain administration might be good enough, right? Because if you look at email, chances are a malicious spammer or a backdoor, Trojan type thing. It doesn't have to be that. Is that definitely Bob from whatever, Microsoft.com? If it's from Microsoft, it's very unlikely that is malware. So I don't know about fully rolling out SMIME for users yet, but we can certainly get domain validation. I've got it, and I can create generic accounts, sales at, admin at. And again, what Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman solved, if Bob and Alice have to share these secret keys, I can't encrypt. They're encrypting data. I can't encrypt the key with the key. I can't put the key to the safe in the safe. So that's what the public key of the receiver is for, right? That's a key exchange protocol. And I share what I'm encrypting today is AES keys. A lot of people miss that. People who write help things, like the Thunderbird email help. In Thunderbird, and unfortunately, this is the only SMIME compliant email client I could easily set up, because Microsoft is now, the Microsoft Mail built-in kind of supports it. It's not real easy. The Microsoft Outlook is now cost me money and stuff. So if I want to set up whatever, a key pair for Bob, I go to account settings, and I'm going to go to end-to-end encryption. And I can either do PGP or SMIME. So that's what we're going to play with. We're going to see how this is supposed to work in some of the challenges. And so I go to load it up, and I get it installed. I get the PGP. And you saw I could select those algorithms. Let me go back to that. Right. You know what I can't select in the end-to-end encryption? My AES strength. I want to go on to 256 or 128. I want to be able to pick that. I can't find a setting for it. Googling around, they seem to think that I'm going to use the public key. Alice's public key to encrypt mail. Because in order to send somebody an encrypted email, if I say, write a mail and I want to encrypt it, I'm going to need Alice's public key. Yeah, I need her public key. Sure, that makes sense. And they say, yeah, that public key would encrypt her email. Did things change? Are we encrypting email now with public keys? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm a packet analyst. When you can't solve things with a packet, the next thing we do is look up the RFC. That's just how we do it. And first of all, they wouldn't let me pick elliptical curve, but RFC 8151, which is let me go back up to the top, the RFC since 2019 on SMIME 4.0. And I say, does it support elliptical curve? Because they said it doesn't. Oh, no, it must support. Now, Diffie-Hellman is the key agreement protocol. It's when you use this, a key wrap algorithm, that's what they call it, to wrap what? AES, oops, I've got some weird pad thing going on here. AES at 128, both are mandatory, But the people who wrote the help client, I'm sure the developer did it right or gave me something. I don't know which he picked, 128 or 256, and I don't know where to select it. I'm not picking on anybody. Nobody screws up more than Larry. I promise you, I'm trying here not to compete and say I'm better. I'm trying to collaborate and say, hey, I hope you'll forgive me for my trespasses and I'll forgive you yours, but can we all work together, collaborate, and make a stronger world together, right? So that's our goal. We're going to figure out how to do this right. Also, as far as bias, I'm so psyched, by the way. Rana Kayubi is one of my heroes. I think she's one of the greatest scientists alive today. I think she's discovered something so wonderful. It's going to make our lives so much better. I'm a huge supporter. She's a Egyptian computer scientist, went to Oxford, and now she's at MIT, and she's discovered she was very frustrated with her computer and misunderstanding her, basically, or people misunderstanding each other with computers, that we don't see each other's face. I can't see the look on your faces. It sucks, And so she's developed this emotive AI, and basically the bottom line is, we'll talk about a lot, is that when we communicate, we often have a mistake. A waiter misunderstands me and he brings me the wrong food, but he's trying to communicate. It's not just the words I say, he looks at my face. Alexa doesn't look at my face. And when Alexa misunderstands me, she goes, oh, did you say steak medium rare? Oh, I thought you said delete your C drive. Nobody says that. But she doesn't fail as a human. To her, it's like, I don't know, the SHA hash came out the same. So what she pointed out is words only represent about 20% of our communication or less. 70+% of how humans communicate is a look on our face. And if Alexa could see the look on my face, she wouldn't make mistakes like that. It's awesome. So I tell her that I'm actually going through something right now. I have bad news about my cat. He might have cancer. And I have this idea that not just facial expression, she points out, it's not just facial expression, it's arm gesture, I'm doing it right now, and it's tone quality. Well, on pets, they don't do hand gestures, they do tail gestures, and they do ear gestures. So I have my kids kind of working on this. We want to save Alfred, my cat, and just make the software that emotive AI for your pet. I wrote her. She said it's a great idea, and she got this was years ago, and she got named by like Inc. magazine recently about one of the top 100 most influential women in business. And I said, congratulations. I was just talking about her to my youngest daughter, a very socially conscious 17-year-old, who was talking about billionaire tech people, I won't name any names, who don't have the highest ethics. And I couldn't, even though I like these people for much of their accomplishments, but I couldn't argue against her points. She was right, you know. And as she was leaving for her after school job, I said, what about Renai Kayubi? I wish you'd listen to her. She's somebody who really is trying to work for the common good. You'll see. And so I typed that in my comment. I was just telling my daughter, and she goes, oh, well, tell her to reach out to me. I'd be happy to connect. So some of you probably worked with my older daughter who works for me. She just graduated college already, Martine. And so I tagged Martine in LinkedIn and I said, Martine, maybe, until your sister gets on LinkedIn, you'll take her up. And Martine writes, hi, Rana. My dad talks about your work all the time to me and my sister. And girl pal or something like that, a girl boss. And that's her. I didn't realize that's her byline. She writes back, Martine, you got to connect with me. Don't you have the coolest dad? So we're working on this video that we made. Martine might be able to share it soon with the cats, and we're making a video of emotive AI for pets. We'll see. One of my heroes. All right, about to break for take our first break here. We're going to take 20 minutes. Let me pause the recording. Welcome back, everybody. Looking at a very handy document, especially for people taking tests like CISSP, and that's my 80% of my bread and butter. But CCSP is bringing me a lot of work. I also just recently took the new CISSP and plan on taking the new CISM. So the new CISSP came out in 2021, and the new CISM just came out this year. So I'll be taking that as well. But I always say that when you take a test, it's not just proving that you can do your job, that you technically understand. It's that you know how to communicate, and in particular with written words. It's your command of the English language. It's not. You're a waiter and you read the test question, and that's like somebody giving you, I want this. And you got 4 items on your menu, and one of these is what they're asking for. It really helps to understand the terms. So my favorite reference for this is SB 800-63-3 for now. And so when Larry says, and my whole meat here is when I say that, email is how most malware spreads. And it says it was Larry from our company, but it turned out it wasn't, right? Because they didn't really have a credential. Anybody can claim to be Larry Greenblatt at Internet Network Defense. Anybody could claim that. But I need proof of that, right? That's what, let me see your passport. It says the TSAH or whatever. And where did I get the passport or my certificate? And for my case, I went to SSL.com. That's how oops. And when I applied, they needed, this was interesting. So if you apply for a credential for you, you need to prove who you are. It's a very testable term, and I find most people, including Okta, got it wrong for a year, and then Okta has fixed it. Okta used the term identity proofing. Oops, oh no. Identity proofing to mean two-factor authentication. And they stopped using that. Glad. Because identity proofing is when I'm applying for my passport or my driver's license, which I'm going to use as ID, and I need ID. Got it? So this is a very testable term. That's why you use dev/random or something like that to generate entropy. Yeah, actually, on your exam, or a CISSP exam, what's the if you wanted to create a session key or some type of key to encrypt something, usually you got to do something. They call it a seed. If I have a random number generator, let's use a perfect, supposedly the best random number that we know, random sequence is pi. Pi is a random sequence, but it's very predictable at where it starts. RC4, whatever. If you have a software random number generator, it's always going to start the same way, just like Pi does. Your passphrase or whatever you use is called a seed. So when you say, no, but start counting 1,000 digits in, don't just start with 3.14. Right. So that's why we use random to generate that seed in a lot of things. But even the software number generators are considered pseudo. Hanyan, what's the very testable CISSP thing that can create a true random? There's at least 2 questions this year on TPM, a true random number. So software, I'll type it out in here. Software, it can only be a pseudo random number generator. It's just considered software. But if it's hardware, it is a true random number generator. And TPM can do that. Oh, one of those hacks too. I haven't gotten into this yet, so I'm not prepared to talk to this. But that one hack that really blew me away, I told you, it was actually shown last year, but it got better this year. So this is Microsoft Active Directory Certificate Services hack. Look at that right there. There's all kinds of. This is how. So Microsoft had their own asymmetric encryption for a while for Kerberos. Kerberos was built from MIT, purely symmetric password, but that's not how it's been. Since 2016, we've had PKI solutions for Kerberos, PKI NIT. So this is an old standard, but Microsoft didn't use it at first. They had their own. So since they changed ADFS and they went with their newer ADCS, this is better in that they're copying the standard, but it's templates, and anything you do to make it simple for people tends to make it less secure or something, whatever. So there's been a few, and one of the issues was the storage of private key, and the recommendation was to use TPM or an HSM. They argued, and I didn't understand. So they said if it didn't have the TPM, they were always able to steal the domain controller's private key. It's insane. And so, and that was a YouTube thing. Let me go to YouTube. These guys show it, and they show the tool they use. So ADCS hack. They have the one I actually saw. These guys, my wife saw them. She goes, "Oh, you got to watch these guys." She goes to Black Hat DEF CON every year. There's been a few of them there. Let me see. Black Hat. I think this is it. Certified pre-owned. This is it. Certified pound. So interesting stuff. And the only way to protect it was TPM. Very interesting. But this is beyond where I need to get to today. We're still installing my updates here. So while I'm waiting for this this VM to update, again, back to this SP18, 800-63C. Very, very handy list of terminologies that you can use to pass your exam. When you take an exam, remember it's kind of like you're like a waiter. A waiter's job is not to tell people what they want to eat. A waiter's job is not to explain, maybe you explain to them how things are cooked a little bit. But the most important thing is to understand what the customer wanted and give them what they wanted. And if you don't know the words on your menu, that's going to be really rough. Again, most of my students are like great chefs. They know how to cook it. They didn't know it was called that. And when you take a test, you need to know what it's called. So let's see if this thing's up yet. Boy, a lot of updates here. I'm so sorry to make you wait on that. Let's see if there's another great thing. Actually, you know what I wanted to see while we're doing it? Another reference, move this to a new slide, what window? Um, Another reference that the HSM, how much time do you allocate question no more? Well, because the newer exam has, so in May, you get, I think you had 72 seconds per question, and now you get like 82, right? Because you get 25 more beta questions, but you get an extra hour. And I think that number works out. Yeah, it's actually in my slides or somewhere. But I want to see the HSM versus TPM. And it looks like the HSM, I always say the HSM has an ASIC on it, but the HSM apparently also has a way to protect private keys that I was not really aware of. Let's see. All right, so hardware security module is pretty much a bigger security. Come on, come on. One of the most widely is so they do maintenance. Do not provide against physical attacks. So if somebody were to have them, physical attacks, by the way, on the against the TPM, and they called it the evil maid. I thought that was really cool. The evil maid attack is a physical attack, and they beat it TPM last year. So yeah, trusted platform module is vulnerable to the evil maid attack. Yep. Yeah. So if somebody has physical access, yeah. But what's weird is I didn't know it could protect. Don't know, most of them at least implement PKI and made it protected so remote systems could not steal the private key. All right. So the major difference, and I can go if somebody else could find the major difference that I knew is that the TPM doesn't have an ASIC. It doesn't do encryption. It just creates keys. Yeah, there you go. Somebody caught that part. Yeah, what a sure hand of liberty. There's debates, by the way, as to whether the TPM's hardware generator is really that random. So some people have found weaknesses. I always say you can only prove what you what you can measure. You can't measure everything. Oh, that's what I can do. Speaking of measuring, I can finish my Wireshark installation. Or maybe I can't. Is it waiting for me to say something? Yes. Oh, there's a new version of NPCAP. That means it's going to want me to reboot, and I am not going to reboot. Test takers. What that driver's for is my ability to do the very testable promiscuous mode. Yeah. That means that when I sniff, I'm not just looking for my own MAC address, things destined to my machine, but I'll sniff on everything. And I'll show you that button when it comes up. Well, very, very testable common knowledge. So. And that driver, it'll still work. It just, now I'll reboot later. That it'll just use the old one. And there's probably some feature that I will miss. One of the great things about if you're a Wireshark user that module, the NPCAP driver does, and that's from the makers of Nmap. It's a third party thing, but that lets you to sniff on anything. So you can sniff on your Bluetooth. That's a beautiful thing. You sniff on your USB. Good stuff. So otherwise, if you just use the Wireshark drivers, you're only going to sniff on your network cards. Hold on, guys. I heard my daughter come home. She might not know that Dad made lunch. It's in the in the air fryer. And my wife and I can eat as healthy as we want, but try getting a 17-year-old to not eat chicken nuggets. Just not going to happen. And I'm not making okay, in a bit, I'm going to pick up Alexa. Oh, okay. She's going to Chick-fil-A. Well, then I'll eat the damn chicken nuggets. This thing is still loaded. Where's my Wireshark? Oh, Wireshark wanted to reboot it. It's got to be ready. All right, hold on. We'll see how far I can get. And while we're waiting for the thing, we'll sniff a quick TLS. If you're a Wireshark user, I should start seeing traffic on one of these Ethernets. Oh, here it is on my Wi-Fi. Oh, that's right. I'm home. You usually see them in my office where I go Ethernet. Now I'm sniffing on my Wi-Fi. All right, so let's just start sniffing. Let's get some traffic here. Wireshark had 4.0, by the way, change your default window. You can configure that, but I noticed everybody's keeping this default window set up. I don't know why. And let's go to I want to go to somebody I know supports quick format. So there we go. Okay, so I'm going to stop. Well, should it go into the ISC square? Let's do that too. All right, now we should have enough. Boom. TLS.handshake. Very, very testable to all CISSPs too. So you definitely want to know how TLS shakes hands. It's a pretty useless. So these are all quick. Look at that. Oh, I don't want to see that. I want to see something. Surely we got a 1, 2. So this might be the ISC square. Let's see. Well, this is my client, by the way. So my client just went to some server, and I said to that server, "Oh, so you want to speak encryption, do you? Well, I know how to speak encryption. See, I can. I don't know why he's talking like a '30s movie guy, but that's what he's talking like. And I can speak a various combinations of asymmetric, symmetric, and hashing algorithms. TLS always shows you your asymmetric first system. So asymmetric, and we know we use them for two things: key exchange, and we use them for signing. So we'll see what the algorithms they chose here. For symmetric, it's always for data encryption. And our hashing algorithms, which we're going to use for data integrity. Data integrity. So this system supports, let's see, a number of different key agreement protocols. Elliptical curve could be used as a key exchange. Sure. That's the default method for just about everybody today. I haven't seen anybody do anything but elliptical curve for key agreement. But you could use RSA. Sure, that's RSA could do both, baby, and only need one key pair. Unlike elliptical curve. If I'm going to do elliptical curve for signing, I got to use a different algorithm. Elliptical curve digital signature algorithm for signing. Or I could do as the last time I saw the ISC square, they use elliptical curve for key agreement. That means they'll agree on this AES key. And they like to do 256, by the way. I notice the ISC square has been 256. They use elliptical curve to share that. But as far as signing, and they tend to go with a 384 hash, they prefer to use RSA. The last time I've been there, they were using their RSA to sign the hash. Right. The only symmetric encryption algorithms we have are either Cha-Cha. We'll get to that in a little bit here. I'm going to look at a quick one. But AES, either at 128 or 256. Right now, they're the only street legal algorithms you can do. And for hashing, the only algorithms you'll see here are probably this. You might, if I scroll down, see oh, there's one, SHA. But you shouldn't be doing this today. I hope you're not doing it. Right, so that's That's how you, but the server gets to select what they're going to do. So that's the next step I should see. I should see a server hello. And what did the server say? The server said, so I'm willing to bet that's the ISC square. So the ISC square said, we'll use your elliptical curve fancy pants to get this. But as far as signing this SHA 384 hash, we're going to use our RSA key. And I don't know why. They've been telling me, and I've been teaching for them for over 20 years, we need to get rid of RSA. Yeah, its days are numbered. Elliptical curve's far more efficient. And you know who knows that? Google. Now, let's look. There was a quick one. If you didn't notice, last year, the quick protocol came out, RFC 9000. Quick, by the way, so you need to know, and don't confuse TCP with TLS. So CISSPs need to know TCP handshake, and don't confuse them, boy, they both begin with T. You know, I really like to make them different colors, but we know that TCP handshake is a three-way handshake, right? 1 SYN, 2 SYN-ACK, and 3 ACK. And so that's what just happened when I went to the ISC square. Back to that. This client hello, I can just filter on this entire conversation. We'll see it. So first I saw the SYN-ACK, ACK. But then the client hello, server hello. Then we have, and I'll type it out for you. Client hello. That should be a different color there. Server hello. Now, I know that often in the same packet, depends, the same whatever. But we're going to list it out differently because it is a separate step, and that's common knowledge. That always means it's testable in my class. Server sends certificate. The X.509 we keep talking about. It's an X.509 with the usage TLS. That's above and beyond. They're not going to ask you that. The client then has to think of, they're going to derive a session key that's polyinstantiated. They got to share a secret. Eve is listening to this thing, and you can sniff this out. So they better. So the client just thinks of some crazy number, some random or pseudo-random number. We're going to call that the master key. This is what's going to salt or be the secret sauce in your key derivation function. So the client encrypts it with the server's public key. Client master key exchange. You guys might be familiar with how message authentication codes like an HMAC, hash message authentication code, they do something very similar. They both hash a few things that everybody knows, but they have a secret salt. That's the client master key. It's the authentication code. And it's encrypted with the server's public. So only the server can decrypt it. That's why Eve can't eavesdrop on that. She doesn't know that part of it. And then finally, the server and the client both add this secret value, hash some other message that they know, and the server makes sure that the client understands this new session key they derived by server sends encrypted message. And as long as the client can decrypt it, then the handshake is over. These are the, but look at this. Every time you go to the server, client of the server, how about doing this a lot faster? Quick. Quick runs over UDP. But it's not reliable. What do you think the client hello's for? It's not connection oriented. Hello? Yes, it is. So this is unnecessary. If you're doing this anyway, what's the point? So that's why TCP's days are numbered, guys. Now, TCP doesn't have to encrypt, but why aren't you encrypting? Quick has to encrypt. Client hello, server hello. You could start encrypting there now that you have some algorithms. You'll just generate something. It might not be the most secure, but yeah, all this is done encrypted. And if you've been to that server before, they're like every time I go to Google, it's the same damn settings. It's all, they don't have to do that. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different handshakes, you generally only see this. That doesn't mean this isn't being done, but it's encrypted. With Quick, it's encrypted, and it can be cached, so it is much, much quicker. Outside the scope of this, anybody else know what Quick can do? It has nothing to do with encryption, but what else makes Quick so freaking quick? Somebody's cooking something sweet and it smells good. My daughter didn't eat the stuff I gave her. I think she's making pancakes. Anyway, it smells really sweet and good. Anyway, Quick can multicast. This is going to change a lot of stuff. Quick, oops. Actually, say multiplexing is probably better. So right now, when I went to Google or I went to the ISC Square, how many different things do we see here? So there are graphic files. It looks like a little, some, I don't know if it's Shockwave, but some type of Java thing came down, some scripts, some, of course, text. And it was all one TCP stream. Everything that came to me just now is in here. Everything I got from the ISC Square is here. Oops, that's wrong. Is this conversation. This is the entire ISC Square conversation. And if this were Quick, I could have said, hey, once you spawn 5 UDP sessions, I'll give you one for the text, one for the JPEG files, one for, and if any one of them slow down, it's all right, you'll get everything. Awesome. Awesome. So Quick, much, 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 much quicker. And Google's been using it for years, but it was non-standard. This session isn't really on Quick. We have done that. Some of you were with me. Hung and you were here. We decrypted some Quick, but that's not what we're going to do today. That was some, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. So in a Quick handshake, it's usually very, very quick. The initial, the over UDP, and my crypto settings. I might have been here before. Some of the crypto say a little weird. Hold up. I want the client hello. Where's the client hello? But it's only 3 algorithms. It's only AES at 128, 192, and the that cha-cha poly 20. Apologize here. Here we go. Client hello fragment. What do I have? I might have something turned off here. Ah, here we go. You get AES at 128, 256, or a newer stream cipher I have yet to see implemented. So I'll save that for, we'll do something on that when when I ever see a handshake picket, I'll start talking about it. What's the point with all these triple dead, blowfish, two fish? We're not using it anymore. I know in theory you could drive a bunch of vehicles on the highway, but if they're not street legal, you're not really going to do it, right? And that's the whole goal here. There we go. Next, Quasar, my bulletin board name. Oh, she's leaving. Yeah, what's she saying? I'm sorry, my daughter. Okay. I am so, this is my youngest. She's going to be going off to college. We were just visiting Rochester Institute of Technology, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm trying to. My wife's like, "Oh, I'll be glad when we can have." I was like, "I'm going to be a wreck. I don't know. I'm going to be a wreck without my kids." That's why I keep my daughter Martine, that some of you have worked with around, and I need to have my children. All right, I'll save this slideshow out for you. You guys are being pretty quiet. Please feel free to ask questions. This is an interactive thing. This isn't a regular class, So that's my actual. Oh, why did I save this? That's why I showed you. When I put in my cert, the SMIMEs, so I do have some evidence. It was signed by not H.L. Greenblatt. It was signed by the domain. H.L. Greenblatt, sales, whatever. So I have domain validation. But isn't it better? At least it came from Internet Network Defense. That would probably still mitigate most malware, phishing attacks. Okay, but it doesn't work if I send it to Gmail. Gmail goes, no, that the message was tampered with. SMIME's just not really supported well. It's not, most people don't handle it properly, and we've got to figure this out. That's not what I was here. I wanted to get you the slides. Crypto chat. There we go. Hello. Are you taking so long? There we go. It's loading. We'll get there. Any other the message didn't go away. The hell, man. I was trying to get rid of that message. I don't know where it's coming from. Yeah, start, whatever. Sure. Anybody else using Thunderbird? Oh, for goodness sake. See, I'm patient. I started this green hat concept. I thought it was cool. Sounds like black hats are bad guys, Gray hats, they're whatever. They're like these girls who just threw pea soup or something on a painting in a museum. I don't know that that's the best way to raise awareness to do destructive things. So the white hat's the good guy, right? But white hats are just sitting there. To me, a green hat was an actively doing something to make the world a better place. That was my goal. I start this thing and I call my band the Green Hats. And then a hacker who I love. I don't know if anybody here knows who Jason Street is. I don't know if he remembers me. We met a couple times, but I think he's awesome. And I follow him on Twitter. And right after I posted, he's like, all right, don't get me started on these colored hats. I'm sick of it. It has racism at its roots. And I'm like, Jason, I agree with you, but I just threw everything into my green hat program. I'm going to lean into it, but I do agree with you overall. And of course, Red Hat's my favorite OS. I'm using Fedora. Oh, that was too funny. Anyway, so save this out to that. going to fix our identities. And sometimes you might have to have multiple identities. That's why I didn't want to give my driver's license necessarily to SSL.com to have my one email and everything reply on Google. I don't know. That's TMI, I think. Oh, did I not say save? Save as. Oh, no, I want to export. I don't want to give you the full. You don't need that. We'll get it together. Oh, by the way, if I paid a little bit more, I would have been able to sign it. SSL.com purposes, right? What's the usage? You can sign documents, but I didn't pay for that purpose. You know what SSL.com did let me do though? They did let me, and we'll get into that. We're going to, right after this, we're going to create some, and we're going to go to Dropbox, Partners, Certification Station, and I'm putting in an October 22, today. And thank you once again, Hanyan, for many times reminding me to do stuff. I appreciate it. All right, and just does everybody have the link? You guys have the link to the slides? I think I put it out there, right? Just in case someone missed it. So this is all the stuff I've been doing for you. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, all right, just in case. I very, very much appreciate the people at Certification Station help me. It's always just, like I said, even if just people who will listen to me, because my kids don't necessarily. All right, so time to kill some time here doing this. Right now, we're just going to start with Kleopatra. I can create asymmetric, symmetric. Unlike the way Web did things, we should not create symmetric keys and keep them. These are primarily just done for one email, for that TLS session, for the day that you connected to your Wi-Fi. That's all. We typically don't keep these, the data encryption keys, just like you don't have a key for a hash necessarily. So what we're really covering today is what's important in identity management. These are identity keys in my terminology, because the purpose of this is to make sure that Alice is the one who signed it, but also if these are keys to the safe, I want to make sure that only Alice's identity can get that key. This is why we went post-quantum. Quantum computing threatens the strength of Diffie-Hellman. It threatens RSA and it threatens these. These are all vulnerable to quantum threats, not these. That didn't change anything here that I know of, that I've ever heard. This is what NIST selected for post-quantum. The identity keys we are going to move to post-quantum. ID keys equal, and again, for key agreement, it's going to be crystals, Kyber, but for signing, crystals, dilithium. Now you're making that up because you're a Star Trek fan. No, it's really called that. That's awesome. But so right now, I don't know any software that allows me to do this just yet. I'm trying to get a hold of that, and maybe the next time I do one of these, I'll be able to show it. So for now, these keys I can create. I guess you could say Diffie-Hellman. There's even another one. You'll see Elgamal is still supported, but can be either why is that not look right? Whatever. Either PGP, pretty good privacy, which is an open standard, so it's more popular, appropriate to say that, or um, X.509. And for us, we think S/MIME, but that's just one of the usages, right, of an X.509 key. We're going to use OpenPGP. The only difference between these is when I get Alice's public key, how do I know it's really from Alice? In PGP, it's because Alice said so, and you trust Alice. But in SMIME or X.509, it's because a certificate authority signed it. That's the only difference. It's the same algorithms. It's just how do I know I can trust this public key? That's all. So we're about to take another break. We're going to, I'd like to see you get, if you haven't gotten it up already, Kleopatra up. And we can create a new key pair, which can be PGP. Oh, they fixed the font. Yay! Oh boy, that's why I wanted to go to Mint. Oh, that looks better now. Oh, this is good. All right, so I can create a PGP care, or I can create an X.509 and request because I can't sign it. When I was going out, let me give you, we're going to take a break here, but when I was looking for SSL certs, so this is the problem. I go back to AWS. Let's follow this story. I get my AWS. I can get DNSSec with them. Great. I know the mail MTAs is already doing it. And they support SMIME at AWS Workmail. And they got their own certificate server. I go to Workmail and it says, yes, setting up how to set up SMIME. Get yourself some SMIME certificates from somebody else because we don't create them. Really? Did I just read that right? I bought you guys because you. I thought when they said we support SMIME and we have our own certificate server, that naturally led me to believe I can create them. No, their AWS's certificate server is for TLS certificates. All they'd have to change is the damn use case. It's just a different checkbox, but right now, AWS doesn't support that. So I went to how do I get an SMIME certificate? And I'd search around. Purchase. Yeah, you can see me. I'm trying to get ECDSA, and I couldn't get. I did get it from SSL.com, but when I tried other places, they didn't support. And I already showed you the RFC; it must support it. So I went to DigiCert. I went to. I think I went to Komodo. I went to Global Sign, and none of them would let me create a certificate request. I created my own. I picked the key pair I liked. I just need you to sign it. Then on step one, use our tool, create your private public key pair. You lost me at step one. I have a tool, but there's no solution. Their key creation tool doesn't support ECC. I don't know if this new version does. This just came up. So let's go to OpenPGP. If I go to OpenPGP, I could put in a name and an email address, and then I should protect it, with the passphrase. We know that's how you protect your private key. And if I go to advanced settings, I can pick elliptical. Look, it defaults to elliptical curve. And there's a number of different ways. There's a NIST standard. 521 has some overhead. It's really 512. Pretty cool. Or you could do RSA up to 4,000. I don't know why I could use this. This is the weirdest setting. I don't want to go down there. Digital signature algorithm, DSA itself, was a NIST created algorithm, NSA, proprietary. People like, I'm not using it. I don't know anybody that supports it. But they also, that's only for signing. So what would I use for key agreement? The ISC Square has been asking about Alcomal. And you may know Alcomal is the same algorithm as Diffie-Hellman. The difference is it allows you to sign. Well, then why are you giving me Alcomal only for key agreement, but not signing? That's confusing. Whatever. I'll pick the RSA. I don't know. Actually, let me cancel it. And let's try PGPs. Let's try PGP. And let's see if it supports it. Go to advanced. No, still doesn't. I ran into that too. I ran into that nobody supported elliptical curve but SSL.com. I go to SSL.com. ECDSA keys cannot be used for email. That's funny. Oops. Here's my RFC. ECDSA keys cannot be used for email. This is the RFC for SMIME version 4.0, 2019. ECDSA cannot be used for email. Well, according to this, actually updated this, added the elliptical curve digital signature algorithm. And what else? It must support it. It actually must support it. Isn't that funny? It's just awesome. So even though I was able to create it and I said, should I select it? I did. I did in the elliptical curve. And again, if you saw my graphic here, back to my lab here. See if it shows the details. I didn't click view. It is an elliptical curve, and it worked for my internal people, if I send it to myself, but it fails in Gmail. I get an error when I send it to myself at Gmail. It says this message was tampered with. Okay, I'm not calling anybody stupid but myself. Right? I'm not here to badmouth these guys. I'm not competing against anyone. I just want to collaborate. And I hope, again, if I forgive other people's mistakes, they can forgive mine, because I make a lot of them. And that's what we're going to do. All right, let me go back here to my tool here. So that's one of the problems already. So the latest version of Kleopatra still doesn't realize that I can do this, that I can select elliptical curve. But we know it's a must according to RFC 8551. We'll sort this out. We will sort this out. But it's so funny. My wife is works for a Fortune 1000 company, and her take on this is like, yeah, but we don't care. We've got so many other problems. I don't know. She's like of the mindset, I don't know that SMIME is ever going to work, and I don't know that I give a crap. For her, domain validation is good enough, and with her other script. But I disagree. I think we've got to come up with something. But my message, in fact, let's find the one thing, and then we'll take another break here. It's really hard. So I found a really good video on SMIME. That's why I find out why no one is using it. No one. Let me see some. This looks like the same guy, but it's hard. We're just not rolling it out right. We're just, and there's the other, he said one of the biggest problems is getting other people's public key. So for the people in the military, if you're all in your business, if you're all doing your own domain, your DCs, maybe your certificate server or some other way can all store a public directory. Your mail server, your Exchange server could store all the public keys for all the people in your domain. But if Larry wants to send an encrypted mail to Hunyan right now, where do I go to get your public key? If it's PGP, we'll like share it somewhere, where do you publish them in SMIME? You don't. There's no real standard. So it's a real big problem, and we will figure this out. One last thing before we take a break about we will figure this out. is to know that that's what a hacker is. So hacker, according to the RFCs, hackers are not bad guys. It's 2020. A hacker is someone who figures things out and makes something cool happen. So that's what we want to do, and that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to pick on people. I don't want to be better. That's one thing I tell my kids. I said, today in the world of abundance, you don't have to be better than the other guy. You just have to be a person of your word and show up. If you're healthy, so you make it to work every day, that makes you available. And if you're honest, a person of integrity, then we've got something for you. You don't have to compete and get better than the other guy. All right. Back to our thing here and leave you at a good thing. So the other tool I wanted you to see that really helps me. Again, Kleopatra is a front end. Its specialty is OpenPGP. So it knew something about SMIME, but that's not really what it is. That's not what it's for. If you want to do stuff with X.509, even though it could write anything, the name is just called OpenSSL. That's terrible too. OpenSSL does everything. It doesn't just do SSL. It's command line, and the front end I found that I like is called XCA. It does run in Microsoft as well. It will have to install OpenSSL. And now I am a certificate authority. So I could, let me see, do I have a database? Is it still there? You know, I have messed this up before. So PA, 1, 2, 3, oh yeah, good, okay. So we're going to play with this, and we're going to see all the awesome stuff somebody could do as a certificate authority. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to, I don't know what it costs. Maybe that's worth it. The last Google here. How much does it cost to be a CA? I'll bet you it's a lot. How much money to be an intermediate? When you're a CISSP exam, by the way, they sometimes refer to intermediate CAs as subordinate. The more official term is intermediate. Certificate authority. I would love to know the cost of this. Years ago, I had students that they said, dude, it would cost us, and they didn't have a number, but apparently it was very expensive. I don't know why that's true. If I'm just going to do my own stuff for my domain, oh, whatever. All right, let's take our next break. Let me pause the recording. You heard me? Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that was me singing and playing the ukulele. What's really so cool is the bass player, who's got a few albums out himself. He's somewhat of a Philly, well-known jazz musician. He's played actually and the drummer is like studio drummer for so many bands. But the bass player, it's funny. He's single. He just retired a couple of years ago. He's also been my plumber. I've known those two guys since I was 7 years old. The bass player dated my older sister. They had a band. This is 1968, 69. I'm an old fart. And they were my heroes. They were my heroes growing up. They always played. They were always around, and they were always in other people's bands. The drummer is still in like 3, 4 different bands. He's always working on studio projects for people, and then he also still played. The bass player, though, I think because he was my plumber and he thinks my wife's cool, and my family always liked him, thinks I'm a half decent singer, and he likes working with me. And so it's just he. Long story short, this is not why you're here. But ran into some money. Some people passed away. He was an only child. He says, "My mom died. My dad died. They were divorced and remarried. I got a lot of money, and I don't know." So he's making his fourth album, and I'm on it. And I'm just really psyched. Anyway, it's enough of that stuff. All right, so we got up to really here the we're at the Federation. We want to work together. We're here with this world of abundance that if you think I'm making it up, it's just wishful thinking. Peter Diamandis has a group, and I highly encourage you guys to join it. It costs me $1,500 a year, and it's well worth it. If for no other reason that I get to attend his abundance digital 360 meeting every year, and it's a network dedicated to cultivating data driven optimism. You watch the news and you will get a bunch of computer viruses stuck in your vulnerable head. They basically work like viruses. For some reason, when we're going to write stuff down, you're going to hard code an IP address. You're going to have to authenticate as admin. Oh, you're just going to give me an IP address that I'm going to keep in cache? Whatever. Why is it when we cache things, it's okay? We don't authenticate DNS cache. Well, we don't authenticate your ARP cache. If you're taking the CISSP now, some of you are getting questions on our biggest caching controllers. Do you know what our biggest caching controllers are? Probably the content delivery networks for Netflix. So these guys, when I watch a Netflix show, if I'm the first guy to pull down this thing, then yeah, it comes from Netflix, but then it's stored in local content delivery cache servers. And like anything else, it's my experience when people store things and they're going to write it down, they ask to see an ID. But when they're just going to hold on to it for cache, they don't stop and ask to see an ID. It's too much time. It's not like I'm writing it down. So whatever the case is, you cache things, you watch the news, and what is the news? It is a platform to sell. Really, it's not free, right? If you put on CNN, you're going to get at least 15, 20 minutes an hour of products that are sponsoring Wolf Blitzer to talk. And you might not just watch the commercials, you watch Wolf Blitzer. So what does Wolf Blitzer do? Hold your attention. You know how hold somebody's attention? Scare the shit out of them. When you're driving your car, you could be driving around, but when you hear an alarm, you're like, oh, dude, let me pay attention. There are certain frequencies engage your amygdala. There are certain stories. You hear a baby cry, you hear a siren, you hear anything that threatens your life, you stop multitasking. Your amygdala takes over and your brain is hijacked. And at the end of the news, after they stop scaring you, and I love these stories anymore, it's like not only do you got to worry about Putin and nuclear war, and there could be a potential revolution, and this thing causes poison, and these kids today, the new TikTok challenge that they're blowing themselves up, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'm going to change it before you change that channel. Monkeypox, try changing the channel. Peter Diamandis points out, you probably have to go about 10 to 1. Our brains will process danger signals first. They have to. You haven't had a hardware upgrade in about 300,000 years, they think now, the latest estimates. Your hardware ran on, there's software that was basically like, you heard some noise in the bushes? If that was good news and you missed it, you missed the meal. But if that was bad news, that's the end of your DNA lineage. That tiger or bear or whatever wiped you out. You don't have to do that anymore. But overall, we haven't had the hardware upgrade. So we have to process. He recommends reading 10 times many good stories to one bad story so you can actually get the proper balance. So that's what I do. And in abundance, we're not trying to compete with people. We're trying to collaborate. If you're taking a cloud security class, don't look for competition as much as the problems in collaborating. What's hard to collaborate in cloud is making sure that DLL supplier is really the DLL supplier you thought. It is hard enough to deprovision access, user access, because when Bob leaves the company, he didn't call you and say, hey, I can still log in. But an API that you deleted, or that's never going to call you. In order to be secure today, we need secure supply chain management, high integrity and available. That's what it's all about. It's not about confidentiality. And the ISC square knows that. Do not expect, don't go into your test being a confidentiality guy. Half your test is going to seem like business continuity after that. Like, man, they asked me so much disaster recovery. Yeah, because you were so worried about how to hide the secret money, but you didn't know what to do during a fire. That's more likely to happen. Or you hid something so well that you yourself couldn't find it. Now the supply chain's out and it's not available. So this is what the ISO does. They help us provide integrity. They give us the ID. The X.509 certificate is an ISO certificate to validate your claimed identity. They're the identity management keys. We create key pairs. We create a mathematically related set of numbers that are one way. I encrypt with this, I decrypt with that, or the other way. You don't encrypt and decrypt with the same key. So if this is the private, that should have been a different color. I just want it black, to be honest with you. This is the private. And, oh, okay, I'll make the other one a different color. Then we'll make it a nice blue. And this is the public. Oh, wait a minute. I should make it red because black text is encrypted, right? Nobody should know my private key. I did that on purpose. Red text is clear. Everybody can see my public key. Yeah, I did that on purpose. Then this is the way it works. If you sign something, you encrypt with your private. You're probably encrypting a hash, right? So you encrypt a hash. So we don't confuse it. A hash, and then what comes out of it is a digital signature. But if I encrypt with the public key of the receiver, let's make this arrow green for now. If I take the user's public key, what comes out of it is probably the secure key exchange. I am very likely, most of the time, and I'm going to say most because I noticed some descriptions about Crystal's Kyber again. So if you're encrypted with the public key of the receiver, most likely a master key, like if you're doing it's not how WPA2 calls it, but WPA2, if you know, it's also very testable. That secret sauce and the authentication code for the HMAC is called the pairwise master key. But in any key derivation function, it's called a master key for a key derivation function. That is a very testable phrase and algorithm. Most likely, but can be other. And what else would it be? Well, it could be all of the mail, like Thunderbird things, but I doubt it. I don't think we're there already. I don't think we're anywhere near close yet. But you know what I could see doing here? I'm not going to encrypt your email. No, it's too big. It's too slow. But suppose what I'm encrypting is how big is a master key? You're going to find usually it's whatever your passphrase, say in WPA2, maybe some 32-bit value. It's not long. How long is your social security number? How long is your phone number? There can be other types of keys. You could call them identity type stuff, but it's always a fixed length. So I could see where E period, G period, SS number would work here. I have no problem with that. Well, that should be a number sign. There. Do you not know how to make a number sign? 3. And or perhaps like a phone number. So whatever, blah, 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 blah. But most of the time, that's what we're doing. That's all they're used for. Remember, hashes only get, if you're using SSH 512 right? The biggest you're likely to see is 512 bits. Hash at most 512 bits for now, right? SHA. How big is the keys, the master key or social security numbers or phone numbers? They're not very big. What you're encrypting asymmetrically is not very big. It's not even half a K. That's why, again, data encryption, the content of my email, the entire SSL session I'm having right now, this encrypted hand is always symmetric. If you're using voice over IP and you very testably knew to use SRTP to encrypt the contents of the data of the phone, right? SRTP carries the voice, right? Remember that. That's very testable. Actually, everybody this year for me is getting at least 4 questions on voice over IP. So I would know that by default, the old, you set up the communication. It's got to be connection oriented with TCP, with a TLS SIP. And somebody could lie about their ID. I could use a certificate, and that's just someone's public key. Again, this is an X.509 cert to validate the X.500 name. Right? And X.500 again is LDAP or Active Directory, slash whatever, LDAP. They just, what protocols am I running it over? I'm running it over IP. But the fact that your name is this subject at, these are the this is the key. This is it. These public keys are X.509 certs to make sure you know who you're talking to. You get somebody's X.509 certificate, you're already way ahead of the game because you don't see too many. Well, we get them all the time when you go to TLS, right? When I went to the ISC Square, it's good. They didn't do it quickly. They just standard TLS 1.2. TLS quick requires 1.3. In fact, you'll see it right there. There's the TLS record 1.3. Gosh, close. Sometimes Wireshark gets really ugly here if you don't close everything right. Why is that showing? I don't see any of this. Okay. No, I wanted to see it was toward the end, pardon me. Oh, I wanted the handshake, a very testable term. How many steps in that TLS handshake again? At least 5, right? We knew that. All right, so this is when the client and server negotiate their algorithms. The client says hello. We know that that's always the first step in any TLS conversation. That's common knowledge. and the client said, oh, all this stuff. Hi, I can do all this, blah, 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 blah. But then the server said hello. And as I predicted, the server, if I've been there, that's a 1.3. Sorry. 1.3 doesn't show you the certificate. I need a 1.2. So the server says hello. And not only did they select the algorithms, but I probably get, or did I not get? Looks like they didn't. I had to get the certificate on a different packet, which is good. Oh, my bass player's calling here. Hey, Jim, everything okay? I'm going to be there. I'm going to be, right around 6. I'm actually in my class teaching right now. My students can hear me say hi to you. You can say hi. But, I heard something yesterday. Yeah, I got something from Greg, and he said that Spencer said that he was able to move his arms and legs, still unconscious, but that it did look like it's okay, and they expect him to come out. So we'll find out. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But I got to back to class, buddy. It's a bad sign, and it makes the recovery, even if he comes out, he probably got a long, challenging recovery. All right, brother. I'll see you tonight, though. All right, take care. A very dear friend of ours from his crowd, one of the great musicians of his crowd, Rich. Rich used to play with Mickey Rooney, if anybody knows who Mickey Rooney is. And Rich had a stroke the other day, and we're all been unconscious since Friday. So anyway, the server is going to give me their certificate. We know the certificate is their public key, but it should be signed. It's an X.500 certificate to validate their claim name. So let's take, what's the certificates? Why is there multiple certificates? I also want you to pay attention to something else CISSPs might want to be noted. If the entire certificate field, whoops, what happened here? If the entire certificate field only adds up to 3,000, how strong are these? Let's get closer and I'll show you what I mean here. Very, very testable to know these things. So it's actually 2 certificates. Why? This is a signed certificate that validates the claim. This is like I'm checking somebody's driver's license, and the subject is the person or entity's driver's license I'm checking. Let me see your license. So they're claiming the X.500 name. This is their X.500 name, but I'm going to need to see proof. Anybody can claim that. And there's somebody in here claiming he was Elvis the other day. So that's the purpose of the certificate. Now, the certificate is digitally signed, and it's common knowledge the signer is always the issuer. That's a very testable term. So the issuer is DigiCert, SHA. So that's the CA that signed their certificate. Okay. And all I have to do is get their public key, which should be, because I have the list, Microsoft gave me all these root CAs. And I get DigiCert's, what was it called again? DigiCert, SHA2, extended valid DigiCert, GT. No, don't have it. I don't have that certificate. How am I supposed to validate this? Let's go back to the ISC Squares website and double check this. Hold on. Is that still true? I go to the certificate. Connection secure. So the certificate's valid. It says it's valid. And it was issued by DigiCert. But who the hell are you? Guys, I'm going to need to see your public key. I need to see that that's valid. And that's your certificate chain. DigiCert SHA2 was untrusted as much as them. So I needed to get theirs. And I did. That's the second certificate we see here. So if their issue is DigiCert Extended Validation Server, let me see your certificate. And, oh, okay, there it is. So we are, in this case, that's the public key, the actual public key. We are DigiCert SHA2, and that was issued by DigiCert High Assurance EV Root. DigiCert High Assurance, they got 2 of them. Isn't that nice to know that you can have 2 servers with the exact same name in the list? You know what's even weirder? One of them has the same basic usage cases: client authentication, code signing, secure email. What we're looking at here in the context of SCA, by the way, again, is this stuff, right? What's it used for? What is your driver's license good for? And this DigiCert EV Assurance is good for what its CA is supposed to do. In fact, we know that I can go back to this, apply that one of my templates is a CA, and I can see what is the CA supposed to do. Apply all, go to key usage, and CRL sign and certificate sign. What is this key usage for? Every one of them. I'm not even going to bother checking. I don't know if that's valid. A lot of things happened after, for all I know, that's a hack. That could be the NSA messing with my head. I have no idea, guys. I just know it seems weird. I can only speak matter-of-factually about what I measure, and I don't know. And this is the stuff we have to blockchain. I don't know how long it's going to take. One of my favorite researchers is really best for the IPv6. If you've been in my class before, you know how much I love. In fact, this is still one of the best IPv6 videos. Is by Mark Van H-A-U-S. Oh, why do I always forget how to spell his real name? He goes by the hacker name Van Houser. Yeah, he's the IPv6 guy. But he wrote the IPv6 attack toolset, and he's a German researcher. And his basic philosophy, last time I saw him speak on YouTube in English, because he mostly speaks in German, is that he thinks it's going to take a digital Pearl Harbor before people start paying attention just to the IPv6 problems. Maybe that's going to be the truth here. But I thought SolarWinds was the digital Pearl Harbor, to be honest with you. To me, the SolarWinds attack, and it's not just me, smarter people than I am. Bruce Schneier said it exposed the flaw. We have to burn it down and build it up again. And I believe we are. And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm definitely a hybrid guy. I definitely don't want to see DeFi everywhere. I think it's everywhere and anywhere. To me, Schrodinger has to have that dead and alive cat. I got to have DeFi and centralized management at the same time. PKI, the ultimate in centralized management. It's not working. DeFi really kind of a mess right now. I'm a Bitcoin guy, but all these altcoins, I keep saying Bitcoin is like gold, but what's the new Visa and MasterCard? That's the part. And that's what all these altcoins try to solve. Who's going to be Visa and MasterCard? Bitcoin ain't going away. So these are where we're at. We're trying to figure this thing out. But the bottom line is that's what when you get someone's public key, you're getting their X.509 certificate. When I went to ISC Square, I got their certificate. It's got a serial number, like you have a driver's license number. When you're pulled over by the police and they need to check ID, what do? They look at, first of all, the subject. They look at your face, and then they look at the one on the driver's license. They look at the subject, and then they look at the destination or the source IP, and they check with DNS. Is that really them? Are they authority to even come from that? So you'll get that error right away. If somebody tries to play a cert from a different location, look, I'm sorry, that's not, this certificate was issued for a different website. No, and you get an error. But this worked. What's the next thing a cop will do? I check the dates, right? You got your license on this day and it expires after that day. But licenses don't expire usually. They look at who the issuer is. Who's your Department of Motor Vehicle? Oh, this is a PA driver's license. And then they say, I'll be right back. And they go to the car and they make that call and they go to the DMV. Hey, is this driver's license still good? You know what they don't do? Hey, could you give me the list of all the revoked driver's license you got right now? Why would that ever make sense? Why would a cop ever say to the DMV, he's pulling over one person and they need to see if that driver's license is good? You know he's like, hey, give me the list of all the bad driver's licenses you got right now. And I'll just sit here on the side of the road and check that over. That was really, really dumb. Downloading CRLs never made sense. And you could find that for anybody interested. There's a lot of extensions that come in handy for things like that. That particular location, we still support it for downward compatibility. You could check the CRL distribution point. They really bury this in here. I could go to crl3.digicert.com. I don't want to do that. I want to be like the cop that just says, is this good or bad? And that's a terrible name. Authority Info Access. It should have been called OCSP Responder. But then anybody could do it. So I could go to oscp.digicert.com and let's see what we did. Did we get an OSCP? And it's funny, at any given day, depending on the state of the weather. Let's see. I got my server hello done. Let me just see if I have it, OCSP in here. Not a one. ISC Square definitely supports it. I don't know why it didn't on this handshake. It's really curious right now. Let me see if I can generate some. We're gonna leave that alone. I want to get an OCSP response. Dang it. Well, I don't know here. Go to Google News. Is really good. Just click on something. No, I don't know. Okay, whatever. I gotta have an OCSP. There we go. OCSP. What does an OCSP do? Does it ask you to? Here's a certificate status. Does it download the whole thing? It says no. This driver's license is still good because I don't need to know how to build a watch. I just need to know yes or no. It's a very simple question. When I ask you a yes or no question, please don't give me a list of millions of different. Yeah, this serial number is currently good. Say no more. But you see, it's not always working. I don't know. I can't explain it. I just know that I'm not perfect. I always hear my wife in the background, don't you make fun of anybody. You're the worst offender. Tell them about your website. How, 2 weeks of troubleshooting managed to save you 5 minutes of reading. And yes, it did. 2 weeks of troubleshooting shaved off an annoying 5 minutes of reading I didn't have to go through. But again, that's what when you get someone's public key today, you are hopefully, when you're getting it from a web server, you're getting their X.509 certificate. If it's an email cert, I might be getting their PGP key. I can get that configured really easy, right? See how easy that is. Let's go back to did I close my mail? Oh, I didn't even open it yet. Thunderbird. So Bob's got it. And I realized since I went over to Workmail, I don't think I created the same password for Bob. So I don't know if I could do the one demo I'm trying to do here. So Bob has we go to end-to-end encryption. What do they mean by end-to-end? And it's a very testable term. Yeah, also Bob have new passwords. Oh, it looks like Bob's is right then. No, Bob didn't like it. I got to fix it. Sorry. Yeah. But end to end, what does that mean? Remember our email ID. I've got DNS servers, and this could be anytime. DNS to DNS. And we prefer that's DNSSec, by the way. And then I've got my SMTP over SSL, talking to your SMTP over SSL server. Oh, stop. It's just an S, Larry. You don't put a PS. That slash is just S. SMTPS. But this wouldn't, remember, this only signs replies. There's no confidentiality here. This is for authenticity only. No confidentiality, but I know I'm getting the right thing. SMTPS is confidentiality from server to server. but not from Bob to Alice, right? That's what we need end-to-end for. So here, this is so Bob and Alice, when they're writing their emails to each other, others in the middle will never see it. Without Alice's public key, Bob can send her a message. The message goes in the data portion of a payload, of a packet, right? Every data. And then I could add, that's whatever. I can add in whatever, a TLS header. I can add in my TLS mostly runs over TCP for pretty much. And then I'm going to add in my, my layer 3 IP packet header. And these are all in clear text, right? Packets, segments, and this is the TLS header. Say it here. But the data, that should have been an A, is only encrypted if I'm using end-to-end encryption. That's the purpose of end-to-end encryption. End-to-end encryption is to make sure that this gets encrypted. So nobody in the middle can read that. Oh, no, sorry, not for prying eyes. And the way to do that is for your software, sorry, Thunderbird, you're wrong, to generate a AES 128 or 256 key, and then to use either PGP or SMIME to encrypt the key and assign the hash. Notice that test takers, people have separate keys for signing versus encryption. So in my case, even though I can't get it to work with my Gmail, I have ECDSA for signing, but I'm using elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman to encrypt this symmetric key. If you're showing a graphic, it's not show. Oh, my screen is paused. Oh, and I just stopped showing. I clicked the button to pause and all my drawings went away. I am so sorry about that, but thank you very much for letting me know that. Let me draw them again. Oh my goodness. I'm going to draw it faster though. So we got the DNS servers up here talking to each other signed, right? So when I say, where is Alice at internetworkdefense.com, I got first the DNS server has to make sure that I'm getting the right mail server. DNSSec will authenticate only. It does not provide confidentiality. But the mail servers themselves will provide confidentiality. When they talk to each other, they'll encrypt all the mail bulk over today. Which I think everybody pretty much is right. Again, you're not street legal if you're not running SMTPs. And this will confidentiality from server to server. But it's not confidentiality of the content. So when Bob is using his machine, to send Alice an email, he wants to take his original email. I love you, Alice. And ensure that this data is not viewable to anybody except for Alice. So when you ship things on the internet, your data is put in in an envelope, and it could be encrypted. It can't be encrypted is to and from on the outside of the envelope. So most of what we think of is, and probably test takers will remember, that the TCP segment header, we'll just say segment, and the IP packet header, it's supposed to be blue, these are always encrypted, but the data can be encrypted end to end. He wants to make sure that only Alice can see this black text, by his software will create a pseudo-random, all SMIME clients create, according to SMIME 4.0, we saw this per RFC 8551, create a pseudo-random generated AES 128 or AES 256. You don't have a choice. You must do that to be compliant. And pseudo-randomly generate it, and then you can encrypt this key with either Alice's PGP or SMIME compliant public key. Now, again, it's very testable. So whoever warned me that if my drawing wasn't show up, thank you. For CISSPs, it is common knowledge that you will have a separate key. So I am using elliptical curve DSA for signing, but I'm using elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman for encrypting the AES, or again, and these are the data encryption keys. This, what the AES does is the AES data encryption key, and it's common knowledge. We call that a KEC, or excuse me, a DEC. All DECs are symmetric. That's common knowledge. So you're going to encrypt the data encryption key, the key for this mail. It's only used once. That key is a number used once. That's what a nonce is. I'm only going to use it. It's a session key, only on this one session. We're not like WEP where we use the same key constantly. It's silly. So that's the way it's supposed to work. And the only difference, again, between PGP is I can make this right now. That's why Bob has one. It's really easy to create. But using SMIME, I can only create the request. I need a CA to sign it. PGP keys are self-signed. SMIME and any X.509 key must be signed by a CA. So again, SMIME requires PKI, meaning X.509 keys signed by an ISO approved. I think there's two P's in approved. The second P is silent. I don't know. ISO approved certificate authority. And rarely do we know, is it done by the root? Right? Most people don't get, my certificate was assigned by a root CA. They are signed by, let me see, do I have that drawing? It doesn't at least display that. Signed by Internet Network Defense, well, but the certificate, that's the CA. SSL.com client certificate intermediate CA. It's not a root. That was probably signed by one of these guys, since they have their own. Netflix. Oh, that's too funny. I just brought this machine over here. This is my work machine. And I don't see the SSL cert CA in there. That's pretty funny. But they are a root authority. And actually, my other machine has like 80 certificates. I might have to update this machine. I don't use it enough to get their latest thing. I haven't said anything SMIME side. As soon as I do it, it'll show up. In fact, in case it didn't work, they actually gave me their certificate, the certificate for their intermediates. Let me see if I have that handy without showing too much. say there? Is it fair to say that all intermediate CAs that sign certs have a, yes, it is fair to say that if they're called an intermediate, then by definition, that's a great question, Snowbird. By definition, there's somebody above them. And you can see, I have seen as high as 5 intermediate CAs, particularly with Amazon hosts. So mine now is not doing it, but when I had somebody else host my site, so now I'm directly an AWS customer. Instead, I was a customer of a developer who was, so now I was one level down, but it was like, I forget who they use at the root. Let me see. Let me just go to my current broken web server and see what we got right now. Oh, I want to keep that one up. Go here. Defense.com. Connection secure. Let's see. My certificate is valid. And the details. So I got it from, wow, directly from our, this is really, oh, I wonder if because I let them, so this is, they're directly off of, this is probably because I let them be my registrar. R3 is their nickname, Route 53. That's AWS's DNS as a service. Before, that was the top level one that signed an AWS intermediate that signed another AWS intermediate that signed mine. But this one is right from the root of R3, but that's an intermediate to ISRG. And obviously they would have to be here. ISRG. And who are they? I'm curious. These guys have a lot of power, you know. That's why I want to become my own intermediate. I really do. I think it's awesome. ISRG certificates. Oh, is ISRG Let's Encrypt? No, hold up. It looks like that's who they get it from. Internet Security Research Group. There we go. Or are they? Why don't I have a isrg.org? It's, oh my gosh. Larry's ready to do a phishing attack. I guarantee you I can pretend to be them. People will click on it. It's for sale. No, I'm a root CA. You got to trust me. Or you want to see something funny too about the root CAs. Once you get one in here, all games are off because who signs theirs? See any root CA. I clicked on the wrong, but it doesn't matter. All root CAs are self-signed. So once it's in, done, owned, because there's nobody to check. And that's one of the problems in that vulnerability in Microsoft Active Directory Certificate Service. Same thing. So what they showed you, one of the worst game over hack they showed was they copy the DC's CA certificate, but then they just make another root CA that's trusted. And now it's over because there's nobody to check to see if it's still good. These guys don't check each other. I can't use ISRG to validate Microsoft. I can't use Microsoft to validate another Microsoft. These are roots, and they're all self-signed. We will get it. We will fix it. I'm an optimist. Maybe after we have digital Pro Harbor. I don't know. Yeah, another problem there, right? Bottom line, when you get someone's certificate, you're getting their X.509 proof of ID. Sorry, getting some messages, and one of them is from Rana Al-Kayubi, but it's actually just her post, and I just love everything she posts. She's awesome. Oh, she You know, it's actually good news. How about Britain? I'm sorry, as far as the world getting around or collaborating from Afghanistan and Zimbabwe, I think it's just such great poetic justice. We'll see what happens. That the new PM is an Indian and actually a Hindu practitioner. I think that's wonderful. God bless. And Diwali, wasn't that great? If anybody followed on Diwali, what a great thing. So, all right, the take a break coming up here, our last break. But remember, the symmetric key is what we use for data. All for now, data encryption is done symmetrically. And I say for now. So after I've done the slide, I'll go to one other thing before I break here. And the key, when you encrypt data, we call it, when I encrypt the symmetric key to make sure, again, I can't put the key to the safe in the safe. So your symmetric system, well, I think my wife's home from work and she's making noise, or unless dad left the TV on. No, that's my wife. So that's the purpose of the receiver's public key. And we saw in RFC 8551 that they use the term, not equals, I'm sorry. It's a key wrap algorithm. Your asymmetric, the receiver's public key wraps the symmetric key to exchange it. That's what the post quantum from this, not everybody agrees, is going to, they select it, it's too late. It's a key, Crystal's Kyber. Crystals Kyber, right? So that's the post quantum. Wait, did you say asymmetric key use symmetric key for no? Symmetric keys encrypt the data. Think of that as a key to the safe. But I can't, at the end of it, put that key. So I got all my secret stuff for Alice in a safe and I locked it up. How do I get her the key to the safe? I wrap it up using her public key. So only her private key can unwrap it. Let's get that term again. Let's make sure, that's, again, I want to iron in. These are newer terms. This RFC is only since 2019. So it's only one test away, right? 8551. And that's the signature algorithm. It must support it, but I also want to support some key wrap algorithm, Diffie-Hellman. And we could see, again, when you use elliptical curve Diffie-Hellman, a key wrap algorithm. Now it says it's also specified, but what it means is this is basically the public key to wrap either the AES, and they must be supported. They're mandatory. So you got to have at least those two. And you're going to wrap that AES key to the safe with the receiver's public. You know, it's no matter how many times you may have heard it sometimes, if you're not doing it every day, you forget. You know, I can talk about plumbing, but I don't do plumbing often. Every once in a while I do it. But it didn't say it need be, you mean the key wrap algorithm does not need to be symmetric. Is that what you meant? It does not. And that's why most, especially in APIs, this is the biggest problem. Again, it's the DLLs. APIs use either a pre-shared key or less common OpenID. OpenID is asymmetric, but a pre-shared key isn't. So for instance, every time my wife connects some endpoint security device to her SIM or whatever device, it's always using OAuth 2.0 to do the authorization, but it uses a pre-shared key. She doesn't have OpenID rolled out to roll out these things. These are where so many of our vulnerabilities are. Yeah, no, it does not have to be on. Unfortunately, and think about how it works in WPA2. In WPA2, right, there's no asymmetric ciphers. I either have a radius server or, and I don't, at home I just use the passphrase. That passphrase is a pre-shared key that wraps, so to speak, the data encryption key, which we generate every time you boot up, every time you connect to the Wi-Fi network. Does that help illustrate why you were right about that? And I hope other people picked it up. Can't see the look on your face. I can't wait till, I don't want to go back to physical. I just want to put on my augmented reality glasses, have you see them, and now I can see your faces, and it looks like we're in a room. Fuzzy still? Great question. We got 5 minutes. But, oh, I think I have a slide for it. Larry, that's why you have these slides. Duh. Let me skip ahead. Oh, I only have encrypting. Didn't I have the message one for encrypting the data? I didn't. I only have the sign. Yikes. I need to add a slide here, guys. Hold on here. I need to get my data encryption slide. And I could sneak one out of my CISSP class, and I'm trying to think which one. I think it's asset security. Boom. You encrypt your email with a symmetric key. Bob pseudo randomly generates a key. It's just some number. They're going to use it once on this email. We know that it has to be either 128 bits long or 256, right? This session key must be, we just saw it in there, per RFC 8551 must be AES 128 or 256. That's what this thing is, right? Follow me so far? He randomly generates either a 128-bit number he'll only use on this email or a 256-bit number, but he's not using it on 2 emails. If this had multiple recipients, by the way, this was going to go to Alice and Ted, Bob would need both of their public keys. You saw me try to send Alice an email and it said we didn't have her mail, it didn't have her key. So first I got to get Alice's public key. I encrypt the message symmetrically, but then I have to wrap that symmetric key up in a way that only she can see it. So in email, this is typically Alice's public key, MIME and not many people have it. So once in a while, you'll find tools. I'm trying to think who does it. Can be a passphrase, but this is a specialized system. It's not really part of SMIME. It's not how things were supposed to work. But here we are, what, 28 years after the first SMIME, and very few people are doing it yet. So that's why some systems do it. So does that help? Okay, encrypt with private key. No, private key is not symmetric. Private key is what Alice is going to use at the other end of this. Alice is going to use her private key. It's the other part of the asymmetric, right? When Alice gets this email, she's going to use her private key to get the session key. This is that 128-bit number. Private keys are asymmetric and they don't get shared and they don't encrypt data and they are not the same thing. Bob didn't need his private key for this. If Bob was going to use his private key, it would only be because he generated some hash. If he wanted to make sure this message wasn't corrupted, he would can sign by SIGN by hashing, and creates, if he gets his hash and it comes out to whatever a SHA 256 hash, right? And make it a brighter color here. He would then use his private key if he had one. And we'll make his private key. Private keys are green in my eyes. He would use his private key to encrypt the hash. And that's how he signed it. So we got private, public, both are asymmetric. Both private. Oops, why am I hate when I accidentally hit my caps lock. Private and pub, always symmetric. Does that make sense? Session keys, always symmetric. Oh, I'm sorry, I meant to say asymmetric up there. Always. Oh gosh, now I'm messing up everything. Private and pub, always asymmetric. The private public key pair, and they're green. And data encryption keys, always, for now, I'll get into that, symmetric. Does that make it a little clearer? If Bob wanted to sign it, data encryption comes from. If you're going to encrypt the data, that means he's encrypting the message. That's when you pseudo randomly generate that's what SMIME or PGP email systems do. So Thunderbird has this in the background. I just click either sign or encrypt. If I click encrypt, my client will pseudo randomly generate some number that will be 128 or 256. You do not randomly generate a hash. Nope, that is not randomly generated. A hash, no matter how many times or who runs SHA-2 against this message, if you run SHA-2, whatever, run any hash, for instance, SHA, and make that red, will not be random. That's what gives us integrity. If Bob runs a hash on this, he'll get a 256-bit number, and she's going to run a hash. And if they come out different, she goes, this mail isn't trusted. No, they are not random. Does that make sense? Hashes are anything but random, or else it doesn't matter. Yeah. So when you encrypt an email, you pseudo randomly generate some number. It's got to be an AES 128 or 256. That's it. And this is always a symmetric value. It's because AES is symmetric. You encrypt the message symmetrically. And then to give her the key to the safe, you wrap it up in the envelope. But you encrypt that with her public key. And when you're taking your CISSP, still here. Oh, man, I hate some tools. Please remember this. What I just did was called, and it's actually an SMIME. If you look into SMIME a little further, it's called envelope encryption. And the ISC squared knows that too, aka hybrid. Both terms are testable. That means I got the speed of symmetric for the content of the data, right? I got the symmetric for speed, asymmetric for key agreement, and authenticity, because I could also sign the hash by taking Bob's private key and encrypting the hash. How'd that go? We're 4 minutes past what my normal break time, but I think it was a great question, and I appreciate you asking it. Did it help? Are you getting clear? Is it still fuzzy? Is something starting to gel? Quiet out there. All right, let's take a break. Starting to gel, but I still need to review my. All right, well, I'm going to leave this slide up then, and then have a couple. Oh no, thank you, Hanya. I when I saw your name, I was wondering if you were going to be here, and I said, he's been doing. When I saw your name, it was very nice. So thank you, and I appreciate you taking an active part. Please, most people just don't want to ask questions. Like, I don't want to sound stupid. So you're putting yourself out on the line, and I hope everybody else here appreciates your willing to, make yourself vulnerable. As one of my favorite authors these days, Brene Brown, and she had me go. And I'll talk more when we come back about vulnerability versus weakness. All right, let me pause the recording. Hey, welcome back, everybody. I know this is particular on PKI, and but this is a CISSP, and other federation certification programs. So again, CCSP, CISM, CRISC, I teach all these. They're all federation certified, all certified by the ISO 17024. And they're all aware of another big risk, a big risk. We're about to share the planet. And Ray Kurzweil thinks 2029 is that day. Or is that year? That's when the genie comes pretty much out of the bottle smarter than us. This is when you update 2029. I picture I'm going to come down and my robot vacuum cleaner is now smarter than I am. This is when AI passes the Turing test, whatever, possibly 2029. And when that happens, we're sharing a planet now with something smarter than you. So you may have noticed that we are the domain admins of the Earth. Humans got that key. That's an area of dominance, and it's not because we're bigger, stronger, faster, have sharper teeth. Turns out to be because we're probably, if I had to guess, it's because we're more intelligent. And AI will be more intelligent than us. So the risks. Well, the one you see on TV, the Terminator, is control. We use that term, for instance, we'll say controls. I'll put like SP 800-53. See what you could do in SP 853 that will give you domain admin over something. Because guess what happens when AI crosses that Rubicon? It's not like they get smarter than us, right? I mean, they get a little smarter. They're already super intelligent in some things. We're not even close playing chess to anybody, right? So once they cross it, what 853 control are you going to do to prevent, detect, or respond to these problems? Answer: none. You can't do it. You can't control them. And in the movie The Terminator, they decide my vacuum cleaner is going to go from now on. You want to do the vacuuming, and I'll be watching TV. Why would that ever happen? That is ludicrous. I can't imagine my vacuum cleaner will do that. I imagine the second problem. They make mistakes. You know why Amazon's hiring AI that was screening resumes didn't or passed over on every woman? Because it wasn't trained properly. It wasn't trained by women. It was an error based in bias. This is the real risk. That's the real risk. I don't worry about control. I don't bother even thinking there is a way to control it. He's like, what magic word would you use? Because it's going to get smarter. We'll break it. No matter what lock you put on it, because I know how to pick that lock. What do you think? I'm stupid? I'm smarter than you. Thousands, millions of times smarter. If you look at, Gordon Moore's law, the guy who founded Intel, notice you could double the amount of processing, on a silicon wafer pretty much every 18 months. And that's why 2029 happens, right? That's what it's based on. But I gave up on that. I worry about the bias, and so do a lot of people. Men worry about control. Oh, how are we going to fight these robots? Maybe we can get a bottle and light it on fire and throw it at the robot. Look, I hated that movie. I'm sorry. No, there's a nicer way to solve the problem, and that's Rana Al-Qayyubi. Why don't you just fix the bias? Why don't you train it using the very testable Delphi technique? She trains these AIs to understand facial expressions from people. I might make a different face. Nobody in the United States goes like this, but many people in India do. And it means something. And she's trained at the writing of her book, which I think was 2019. There was something like 30 million collections of facial expressions from people around the world, from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe, right? To beat that bias, men and women. And so she's discovered we can interpret things, by your facial expression, but of course there's hand gestures. So here's my $1 million idea. Ready? Oh, where did I say I want to do it for my pets. I wrote her. I said, my mom would love you, but she would have also wanted to look at more than just people's faces. Why don't we not just make? She says, her desires to make technology more human. I said, if you looked at the other animals, we could make it more humane. Shoot, where did I just get it? Didn't I just download it? It was an MOV file. No. Oh, Larry, where'd you save the darn thing? Let me go back up to my email here. Save as. I did it in music. I'm sorry. Getting a little dad's music in at the same time. Oh no, does Microsoft, when does player play an MOV file? I have to freaking load it into something else. Why iota? It doesn't have a codec, does it? The look of love is in your eyes. A look your smile can't despise. The look of love is saying so much more than just words could ever say. And what my heart has heard, well, it takes my breath away. I can hardly wait to hold you, feel my arms around you. How long I have waited just to love you. Now that I found you, you've got that look. Well, that's I'm trying to get my youngest one to take part of it. She's been a jerk. She doesn't want to do anything that anybody else has. So I'm not interested. I was worse. I was a rebellious jerk. You guys back? Let me know everyone's back. No, Larry, nobody wanted to hear your blah, 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 blah. I see a list of 9 people. Did you all walk away from your computer, wait until you see the slides again? Okay. Thank you, Snowbird. Onion, where are you? I'm worried about you making sure that you feel comfortable with this. Dude, I would feel so good if I felt that light bulb go over your head and go, oh my gosh. Right? So let's walk through it again. Let's make sure we got that, right? When you have 2 choices in email. Encrypting and we'll say and sign. All right. Again, all Bob has a choice of in his email client. We have one right here. Of course, Larry, it would help if you didn't put that white thing over everything. We have our email client. There we go. And if Bob were to write a mail, he gets two choices. I have OpenPGP. If I had created a different, if I had an SMIME, I would have this, right? But it's just, what technology are you using to encrypt it? And when you pick, do you want it to be confidential? Do you want it to be authenticated? Do you want to do both? I mean, there's nothing saying I can't do both, right? So I could say, it's got to be, oh, look at that. It's got to be everything. I don't want to sign it. I just want to encrypt it. I want to send you something that's encrypted, but you don't necessarily know who I want to be able to deny this message. I didn't send it to you. Hey, I hit this guy, Greeny, you said that. No, I didn't. Prove it. Are you certain? You got a certificate? If you ain't got it, are you so certain? So that's what that's for. The sign is to make sure that I can't deny it, right? Digital signature. And when you do Bitcoin, that's all you're doing. You're not encrypting Bitcoin, right? Oops. Bitcoin is just signing. That just means you can't lie about it. You can't deny that. You can't say you didn't spend that money. Yes, you did. You can't spend it twice. You can't blame others. Got it? And that's because when you sign an email, you get your computer. Bob has his computer. Bob went to, like Larry did, he wanted to be able to create his own and just create a certificate request. He didn't want to use the stupid tools from the other provider. So I went to SSL.com. Wound up using their stupid tool anyway. But I was very relieved to see that they had elliptical curve. Otherwise, I wanted to use mine. Anyway, I created a certificate request, or I use PGP, in this case, PGP. So Bob created his own private public key pair. Bob keeps a private key on his machine. That's his private. Larry, I think you said private keys were always green. I screwed that up and I don't feel like erasing. So for now, my asymmetric keys are blue. Bob has a PGP key pair. That means private. That only he has. It should never leave this machine. Of course, that private, whatever. We're not going to pick on my spell. But that gets very complicated if we're going to do backups and we lose them. That's another reason there's not a lot of SMI. People don't want to lose their. But anyway, he creates his key pair. The private key never leaves his machine, but the public key can go anywhere. Anyone can see it's public. Public key for anyone. And these are asymmetric. They're not the same. So whenever you see the term key pair, just assume. You see key pair, assume asymmetric. Alice will need a key pair in my scenario to do a few things. If he just wants to sign, she doesn't. So this is how it's supposed to work. Alice has her computer, whatever. Alice over here. He creates a message. Hi, Alice, I love you. You want to go see them, blah, 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 blah. You want to hear me play the ukulele? Whatever. All right, I'm Bob. And so this is the data. This is the email contents of the envelope. Of course, I'm not really encrypting it, so I'm not getting envelope encryption. I'm just going to say contents that'll fit in my little drawing here easy, but it's not really wrapped up right now. And then what he'll do is just create a, they didn't let me pick, by the way. I would have liked to see what hashing algorithm they're using. Surely it's got to be SHA-2 by now, right? So my software just, data hiding. I don't see it. Software creates SHA, I hope. We'll just say hash. I'm going to say SHA because I sure hope. Hash. And even if it were 256. And now it's there's the 256 value. The hash. And I'm going to sign this by encrypting it with Bob's private key. So we add that to the envelope. And using Bob's private key, encrypts that. And he's going to send this to Alice, and she doesn't have his public key. Are you not going to show me? Oh, they updated something. They used to tell you, include my public key. Why does it not say that now? That was, they include your public. When you get your signed email, when you get a signed service pack from Microsoft, when you get a whatever, you're going to get the public key of the sender. Microsoft sends you the service pack, the 256-bit hash that they encrypted, and they send you the, they keep a copy. The public key looks like that. It's it matches, and they give you that. And so now your job is to first check this. Do you trust that? So if you've never gotten an SMIME email from somebody, you're going to go, hey, I just got this public key. Did you really send it? You might call them on the phone and have a banned key, key validation, whatever, and you do it. All right, often you'll call somebody, dude, I'm going to send you. Actually, the only PGP so far I've signed email with in production, my old developer. That's it. The guy that no longer does my website. That's my daughter and I did it as a test. I want to go SMIME, and that's what I'm still working on. That's you missed the beginning. All right, but let's assume that all works. And now his private key was just used to encrypt the hash. So again, signing. It should be a dark blue there. Signing means create hash and encrypt hash with sender's private. Tanya, you're brave enough to be out there, and I, again, very much appreciate you taking that risk of saying, hey, now I'll go out there. Does that make sense? I'll encrypt it in a second. All right, now, though, if we do this, and I say encrypt, and I say to Alice, look at the error right there. It's not a poop emoji. It kind of looks like it. I need to get her keys. That's what that's standing for. So she has to have a key pair. So now she gets a private public key pair as well. And we'll make hers reddish, brownish color. So she has to go into some tool. Only she has her, or actually only her machine has her private, but anybody can get her public. They match their key pair. Bob will have to get it from the director. Encrypting. Not easy. Create the now again, this is seamless. Just I don't see this. Software, background. Create a random pseudo randomly generated number that it's only going to use once of either 128 or 256 bits. Again, per RFFC 8551. It's not just an opinion, it's the law. If you want to be street legal, If you want to be federation compliant, this is what you have to do. This will be used as a data encryption key. It's also known as a DEC to encrypt the contents of the envelope. It encrypts envelope contents symmetrically. And again, AES, right now, it's the only one you can do. All right, so that's easy. I create this pseudo-randomly generated. We'll make it black, or whatever color. No, because that's her color. So he creates this key. Symmetric keys I draw up and down, as opposed to sideways. He creates this AES. Mine, I'm in a rush. And Moore's law, Schmore's law, the AI super intelligent, my vacuum cleaner still won't be able to break this till about 2035 unless they crack the entropy. So that's about Bruce Schneier's number. So 128 is good enough for my email. And now quickly, otherwise 256 takes too long, uses this to encrypt the contents and puts it in the envelope on the outside of the envelope. But to make sure that only Alice can get the key to the safe, he gets her public key, which again, it's public. Anybody can get it. That's the whole point. Maybe call it on his phone. And he takes that public key and encrypts this session. So the next step in this, DEC then encrypted with receivers public or key encrypting key. I publish my keys up. Let me go back. A couple questions here. Cool. I thought you'd publish your keys to some server. For instance, GNU's Privacy Guard. So I remember I said PGP is now a company, so it's more appropriately called OpenPGP, and that refers to either the payware or the freeware. Hong Yun points to the name of the freeware, the cool one, GPG or GNU's Privacy Guard protocol. So yes, GNU PGP. So now it's actually a GPG, but that's the cool way to say that. Fewer keystrokes. And absolutely, you can publish them there. You can publish them to MIT was the cool thing. I think I have some old ones. My first one I made expire for like 10 years too. So people could fake me. That was a dumb mistake I made at like 2000. Oh, probably like 2002. I made my first PGP. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of ways. Did you know there's no standard way? And that's testable for any CISSP. But yes, so you could publish them. In SMIME, your local ones in your domain are published in Microsoft in a DC and your Exchange server. There's no real standard, but they are there. But that's one of the hard parts of why we're still not using SMIME on the internet, because I don't know how to get your SMIME key just yet. Unless I just have you mail it. And who the hell wants to do that? Right? We'll have, I'm sure there'll be mail gateways that'll come out that'll do that. We'll call it a gateway. But so then, okay, so this pseudo random number generator is a once. Yeah, it's just I create it one time. Yeah, ahead of time. Well, no, I only going to do that to encrypt this envelope. When I send you a second email, this is a new email. No, it's going to be another random number. Just like every time you boot up and you connect to your Wi-Fi network, you get a new session key, dude. It's not the passphrase. You're not encrypting data with your passphrase. That's how WEP did it. Right? Does that make sense? That's the beauty of it. You're supposed to be, yeah. You know, like anything, whether it's football or martial arts, if the opposer knows what you're going to do. Oh, no, they always do the same play. First is going to run. Then, no, you always got to randomize it, Every game is different, but not every technology knows that. The other thing that's very testable is, so tell somebody in whatever IPsec, you gotta create a new session key, and I don't really know their exact session key generation. I should probably learn it, but it's like, well, what we'll do? We'll create. Let's say we need a 128-bit number. I'll keep the same first 64 bits, right? That's a related key attack. If you get a question on a related key attack, it's when new session keys are generated and they don't really work really hard. It's easier to randomly generate 48 bits or whatever than it is 128 bits. So that's what perfect forward secrecy is supposed to protect from. Make sure the entire key is brand new, PFS mode. So there definitely been mistakes or dangerous shortcuts done, for performance. And I don't want to stay at work too late, But does everything else kind of click right? How it should work? And now hopefully the receiver doesn't need Bob's public key to decrypt. They would only need his public key to decrypt the signature, but he would have mailed it to them, right? Yeah. But if it's just going to be private, you see, with this version, this is a behavior of Thunderbird. It's not necessarily anything. When I said sign, it automatically picked. When I picked encrypt, it said you should sign too. I could see where you might not want to sign and encrypt, maybe just sign. But if you're encrypting, then I think you should have the decency to sign it. My goodness. Make sense? Otherwise, Bob's getting a secret message that only he can read, but he doesn't know who it's really from, or Alice, I should say. I keep getting this secret love letter signed, your secret admirer. Is there food? Wait a second. Is there food? I made a hell of a pea soup. My wife's coming from work. In the pressure cooker, in the Instapot. Anybody here using an Instapot? It's a pressure cooker, and so it makes my peas get soft as if I let them sit overnight. Cooking tips, music, laughter, fun, and hopefully encryption. That was such a great a question for you to ask, and I hope you're feeling better. I want you to feel better because I know typically my students just need the very basics like what you're asking, but they're so afraid to ask it. And for CISSP, this is extremely important, and it's extremely important to help make the world a better place. Again, the SMIME part of this. Now I'm using PGP, but if I did SMIME, you would do something like we would require for the test terminology, federated ID. I keep using that. If you didn't know, if you didn't prepare with, and I don't compete with other CISSP instructors. We collaborate. I do something that I like to think is different, but whether it's Tor or if you've been around, I love the Think Like a Manager by Luke Ahmed. But please know, some of my students report over 20 questions on federated identity management. Federated identity management means at some level, some ISO approved CA signed something. Something. You know what they mostly sign? If a X.509 cert is like a passport, then SAML token equals boarding pass. And the scarier thing about boarding passes is nobody checks your ID anymore. They thought that was done already. Yeah. SAML token, that means it's already authenticated. No one's going to double check your face or send you through the metal detector again. I created an X.509 golden certificate, and the hackers that are exploiting Microsoft's Active Directory certificate services are also doing that. And if you get, and that's how my friends, Fortune 1000 company, just failed a pen test. Hey, the good news is it wasn't a Kerberos silver ticket attack. It was just as bad, if not arguably worse. But whatever the case is, they created it when you're in the domain and you're already kind of checked. But if you had a SAML token, now boarding passes expire, right? It's like your TGT in the Kerberos environment, whatever you're using to log in. I can use an X.509 with PK in it. I could use just my password. I could use some whatever multi-factor with token, but whatever it is to get in to check let me see your face, right? You get a TGT that's good all day. That's your all-day pass, and that's your boarding pass, and it lets you don't just board on one plane for the 8 hours you're in the domain. You might board the printer, you might board all kinds of stuff, right? That's what your SAML token is. Your TGT that was signed by a federated identity provider, an identity as a service provider, and so this goes along with ID as a service provider. Is the one who signed you. For instance, the very trusted, say, Okta, who got hacked and didn't want to tell anybody. And then when you asked them what happened, don't worry about it, we got it fixed. So they use now it's common knowledge, SAML is based on XML. XML is an extension of HTML. So what was the usage on the certificate? SSL signing. So it's an SSL signing certificate that signs your SAML token. And if you wrote on the SAML token, all usage cases, you'd have a golden token. You'd have a golden SAML. And that would be really bad because then you could say it never expires. You're God. No one's ever going to check you again. It's done. And you have full rights. Right? It's my time. That's why people like Bruce Schneier think it's over. It's the solar winds. It's one word, Larry. Golden SAML. It was over. That's game over. They own the internet. I don't know how bad it is. I don't know. It's like the kid had the keys to everything. What did he take? We don't know yet. We're still, but whatever the case, the answer is we'll get better. We'll learn from history. We'll use the blockchain somehow. We'll come up with them. I mean, if I understand Bitcoin's slow transactions per second, but how many updates to this thing do you get? And there's only 60 something in here, maximum 200 around the world. If anything is asking for proof of work, this is it. This is the guy. So if you ask Larry, what would you do next? Boom. I would make this a proof of work validated consensus protocol. All right. Well, I hope that answered. We're going to close up soon. Let me go through the rest of my slides and make sure we got all that. So I kind of skipped ahead. I wanted to see a couple of things. Again, the problem with asymmetric encryption, the big challenge is you never heard about the golden SAML. Nice. It was bad. All right, so OpenPGP, the third party could be Bob. It could be self-signed, or if you go, but Alice signed Bob's key. People would have key signing parties. This is basically DeFi, the birth of DeFi, and this is, the hierarchical. And to me, we need a mix. I want centralization in some cases. I think it's required. Without require, could you imagine negotiating the physical highway where, oh no, we use red light to equal go. I want federation rules. Red light equals stop. Green light equals go. I'm sorry if that inconveniences you, but if we don't agree on something, we're going to have a hard time negotiating things. Question. What's this? Sorry, this is hey, no, but I semi understand federated IDs to be how I'm able to log into. Exactly, because they would trust a passport. You're getting an ISO signed certificate, but probably not. They're doing it with a SAML token. So what happens is using OpenID. So this is kind of what happens. You log into Gmail, right? Now Gmail is already owns YouTube or whatever. So when you go to YouTube, they just go, hey, it's him, and they sign like a SAML token for you, but it's actually an OpenID thing. For APIs, they don't have SAML tokens; they have OpenID certificates. And if it's Groupon, like if I go to Groupon and you go, do you want to sign up with your whatever log into Spotify? So you want to log into Spotify with Facebook. Well, that's different. So what happens is they're like a valet. In fact, one of the worst hacks is when they say, hey, do you want to log in using Facebook? And you go, yeah. They go, all right, put in your Facebook username and password. No, you don't. No, you log into Facebook using your username. You will tell them not that you're me. You will tell them that you're Spotify, right? So Spotify, I don't know, honey. That's a great question, but I would assume yes. That's how I would have done it. So we'll get to that in a second. So Spotify says to Facebook, hey, we're Spotify. And they go, yeah, what's it to me? They go, well, Snowbird just said we can check his ID to see if he's really Snowbird. And they go, he did he? I'll be the judge of that. And if this was like Instagram, they wouldn't have to because they own Instagram, but they don't own Spotify that I know of. So they then prompt you. They go, hey, Spotify wants to validate that you live here. Is it? Should I tell them yes or no? Should I talk to them? You go, yeah. And they go, yeah. And they go, hey, can I see his contact list? Hey, they want to have permission to your contact list. You go, no, I don't want that. Because OpenID, they don't authenticate as me, right? This is using federated identity management, but for the API, if you get a question on it, to do a delegate trust. I have delegated that check to Spotify, but they don't, it's like getting my valet key. They don't get the key to, for everything. They get to say, yeah, I'm here for Larry. Did that answer your question, Snowbird? Because that's not at all duh. That's probably the hardest part. It's bad enough getting people X.509 certificates, right? How many APIs have them? I hope that. Oh, I appreciate the question. I very, very much appreciate the question. Keeping it lively. Otherwise, the worst part is when I just keep talking and nobody says anything. And I go, that's it. I'm going to play my ukulele. So again, you can go around and do history stuff, but just look at this. This is to get 128 bits of entropy, where every number is a possible. I could use 000, but you couldn't do 0000 as a password in RSA or Diffie-Hellman or a key. No, only prime numbers work. So to get the same amount of entropy, I would need 3,000. We saw that when I went to the ISC Square. Remember the certificates? Do I still have it up here? TLS dot handshake. Server. Oh no, certificate. Right. Yeah. in the certificate, and it should be up higher. It said certificates. That means, and it's 29. This is how many bytes of data. And this is multiple. This is the cert for, oh, I thought it was the ISC square. We know we've got the ISC square one in here. It's not much better. So both the certificate for the end recipient and the intermediate CA together didn't add up to 3072. They're not even as good as that. Because we got, at best, when you go to the ISC square, you basically get this. You get the ISC squares and you get their signer. But this is why elliptical curve is so much cooler, right? I only need double to get the same entropy. Does that mean it's faster? I think it might be. And I don't know. I'm going to get to something in a second. All right. But we know that the asymmetric systems today are probably these. If you're using IPsec, it's not really there to sign stuff. Diffie-Hellman used an IPsec as just session key generation for every X amount of minutes. So your session, like I said, every email is a different session key. IPsec tunnels up all the time. That session always there, right? So you typically set a lifetime. You go, no, we're not using the same data encryption key all the time here. And I was a Cisco guy, their default in those days was 24 hours. And I learned that checkpoint was 8 hours. And I learned that by blaming people for breaking stuff when it really was just the key. I was an ass. And I'm sorry. I apologize if I got mad and yelled at I need to be more joyful in those things. So I got no right on. Anyway, so we know that these are the things. And so let me get to this Crystal's Kyber. Check my time. I don't want to keep you too long. Plus, I got to get to rehearsal. But remember I said that symmetric encryption always does the data. When I'm looking, I don't know if it's just not written clearly. I'm not really sure. But it looks like because of entropy, it's not 3,000 bits, it's only whatever, 256 in ECC. Some people are suggesting we're going to do data encryption asymmetrically. And I don't know. And it looks like the definition for crystals, Kyber, crystals, and that's them, post-quantum. Kyber is in a secure key well, it's a secure key encapsulation. Yeah, it's symmetric. Yeah, that's how I was. This changed. Never mind. Now they are specifically just saying key encapsulation, and they call it a KEM, key wrap and something. I tell you, the last time I looked at it, it said for data encryption. Oh, that's too funny. All right, so never mind. But it does seem that some people are suggesting that. So I want to keep that open to, my overall thing I tell my children is that if I can sniff the packet out and prove it to you quantitatively, I go with it. If not, I just say maybe. So that's the idea. So post-quantum, we know what we already hit it. We know that the purpose of a digital signature is to ensure that the wax seal wasn't broken, that the peanut butter really did come from the Valley people here. And we've already walked through this. So. And again, when you sign a message, and the old version of Thunderbird would tell you, do you want to include your public key? Got another question here. Because it's through an API. Yes, that's exactly right. Snowbird said that it's still federated identity. Yeah, federated identity, again, can be that someone has an X.509 certificate, and that's the way my servers work, my web server. That's how this is the Zoom, and how this is Dropbox, is through their X.509 certificate. How in my email, the federated identity is SMIME, X.509 cert. and for quicker things, because most people don't have it. When people sign into their domain or get a federated ID, it's generally the all-day pass. So that's a SAML token. But when APIs validate who they are to each other, they do that with OpenID. You know what else, since you're there and you're curious, and it sounds like you might be preparing for your CISSP. Is that true too as well? Yes, sir. Well, you might want to remember then that the OpenID, sometimes called OpenID Connect, requires OAuth 2.0. Yeah, that's common knowledge. Yep. So let's put that up there. Make sure that might be all the people. Federated ID for APIs equals OpenID Connect, which is part of OAuth 2.0. Is there anything else? Look, you know what? I think this is good stuff, and it's good and hopefully you guys will say it was a great thing. It really helped me with my exam. So here's what happened in OAuth 1.0. They create a way. Now remember, for communication to be authentic and validated, and we want to identity management is typically AAA. That's authenticate, authorize, and account. Who are you? I need proof. Authorize. All right, now that I know you're Bob, what are you trying to do here? You want to see Social Security numbers? I'm sorry, Bob. We have no rights for you to see Social Security numbers, nor are you a member of, in fact, the only one authorized to see that is the HR role. And you're not a member of HR. So I don't care if Okta says you are really Bob. I here at whatever PeopleSoft will not authorize you. I trust that you are Bob. They're separate. And then somewhere else, maybe you've got some logging system that will account. That's what we do. Well, for APIs, they created OAuth 1.0 only authorizes. They typically say auth Z. If you've never seen those terms, a lot of times instead of saying authenticate, they say auth N instead of authorize auth Z. And it does something even stupider. When it says, hey, can I go in there? They go, yeah, use my key. It goes in as you. Actually, it's worse. It's kind of like Outlook talks to Exchange using Exchange's server's key. Dude, give them a key for them. No. So OAuth 2.0 fixed that problem. But how do the APIs even know if you go, all right, so the CrowdStrike endpoint securities are allowed to write data to this location on my server? And you go, okay, how do I know you're the CrowdStrike endpoint security device on Bob's workstation? I'll just put in a passphrase. We'll call it, I got to put one on every system. CrowdStrike 123. So you create a passphrase that's the same everywhere, right? Really crazy. So the authentication here provided by the app developer. And they don't know what they're doing. They just use passphrases. I don't know. That's what I always did. Just give a secret word. Make sure you hash it. Make sure you hash it with a nudge. Make sure you salt it. Don't want to be vulnerable to rainbow day. Blah, 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 blah. And it's pre-shared key. Either way. It's not federated. PSK. OR20. Let me do it in a different color here. Actually, green means go. I like green. So now, OR20 for one thing, fixes the set. Everybody gets their own key, adds federated identity support, OpenID for federated identity. Got it? Does that clear thing make anything easier for people to understand? I will argue, you're awesome. I will argue this is the biggest risk, Snowbird. This is what happened in the most recent Binance hack. And when your exam, I know they're asking about my very big game over fear hack. When I was a little boy and I wanted to configure a router, if it was already configured once and it had an IP address, all I had to do was telnet to that router from my desk. Oh, it's got to be encrypted. You got to use the SSH now. And I'm now at Amazon and I've got to configure 10,000 routers to dynamically open up, a little more bandwidth for this one app that's just scaled well because Kubernetes said I need more bandwidth. I'm going to use software defined networking. And I'm not going to have a person, an API, a program is going to tell me. I'm going to get my instructions. Software defined networking API hacks are game over. This to me would pwn at the internet. Well, I know the best way to get to any network. First, come through my network where I can spy out everything. All right, we're getting to the end here. I think that's, let me skip ahead of my slides here. Make it look like I came to the end. So anybody reading recording and just, so we kind of hit these things. I sometimes go over Merkle trees. I didn't know how much time I was going to have here and explain how blockchain really works and stuff. And the key management's really hard. It's really hard to make up passwords. They're just keys are just passwords. It's just another term, or I should say, a password is a key, the key to open up whatever. And again, it's just a proof of ID. That's what your X.509 certificate is. You claim to be this X.500 name, and we sniff a few out, blah, 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 blah. We saw that there's certificate authorities. Now, very testable is to know that you can apply for your driver's license without going to the state capitol, to the DMV. You're going to a registration authority, but they don't issue the certificate. It doesn't, when you get your driver's license, it says from the Department of Motor Vehicles, not from the place at the street where you registered, right? So that's an RA is optional, but they don't sign anything, they don't issue. And these are, we have our intermediates or subordinates. I sometimes point out, I don't know how anybody gets on this list. It's kind of weird there. I tried looking at the root of all trust because, the CAs are down here. These guys are here. Try finding this guy anywhere. So this is another issue. I don't even, it's centrally managed. I don't know who the central authority is. It used to look like this. Now I can't find it. Whatever. And I showed you, I talked about errors failing. Oh, I'm sorry, your license is expired. Or, hey, that doesn't look like you. This DNS IP address isn't for the same here. But that's typically not what happens. It's just like Department of Motor Vehicles of Bob. These are self-signed certificates. Certificate revocation doesn't work great. I'll deal with that another time. You could look up the Tor project and their feeling on that. But it's like, does certificate revocation work? Nah, not really. We'll get there. We're going to blockchain it. We're going to fix this. We're going to improvise. We'll adapt. We'll overcome. And again, I don't think we're ever going to get to one is better than the other. Schrodinger's cat is both DeFi and centralized as far as I'm concerned. Guys, I got rehearsal. Get out of here. I'm going to pause the recording, but thank you so much. I can stick around for a minute.